Johnson makes the cut. Forget about that. Johnson, first down, slides down, and the Washington Huskies are going to win the final Pac-12 championship and punch a ticket to the college football playoff.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Yeah, 7 catches, 157 yards. That was supposed to be a reverse pitch, and it blows up, and Salter makes a positive play and breaks loose, and he scores 35 yards. Wow.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
3rd and 9. Four-man rush against Plummer to the end zone this time, and it's intercepted by Bethune. He made a great play earlier and comes up with the pick in the end zone. The Florida State defense does it again.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
3-3-5 defense. Here's some trickery. It's a flea flicker, and it works to perfection. Jatavion Sanders wide open for the touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Ponies 5 of 8 on 3rd down. Here comes the heat. Jennings off the back foot. Slings it into the end zone. And caught for the touchdown. Keyshawn Smith.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Milroe again, a wide snap. He's got a wheel wrap to Jam Miller. Touchdown, Alabama.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, Craig's a late scratch, not feeling well. He was able to go and do the Bearcast earlier, a couple of hours ago, but he's a late scratch, so he's not a part of the show today. And what is the saying, everybody? When you have one of those shows that's jam-packed and a lot of information to talk about. Paul, you never say it because I got
It's your
blocked.
trademark. It's your trademark.
I was banned from Twitter.
It's you set your head on fire and dip in a tank of gasoline.
No, you can't screw that up.
It's not my saying.
Stick your head in a tank of gasoline and light it with a match. We are about to go full throttle.
We've also got a sugar rush here to help us through it, thanks to Paul Bloss, one of our fantastic viewers. Paul and I saw each other. There's Paul. We saw each other in Orlando for one of the few bright spots of Baylor's season.
Looks like a bunch of mountaintops right there. Like you got Mount Everest over on the left-hand side with Garrett.
Yeah.
And then all the rest
that's
of us.
the foothills you have to go through to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On your way. But yeah, you brought these from the check stop.
On the way down to go watch Baylor and Seton Hall tonight. Big East battle is what they call it. Some of the Big 12 schools involved with that. Baylor playing Seton Hall, the Pirates, tonight in a game at the Farrell Center. So, we understand, we're not naive, that one of the growth spurts that we had 3 different times since we opened this show in April of 2020, we had a growth spurt, we hope, because of our initial contact covering. Baylor, of course, in 2020 was COVID. We just got through it. We did. We broadcast from Paul's second floor of his home. Got through it, and in September moved into the beautiful studios here on MLK. But the first, bam, was, and that's not stealing from Emerald, was when Texas and Oklahoma, the story by Brent Zerneman, and also the SEC, Texas and OU. Then after that, it was the USC. Well, no, it was then the Big 12 recovering and finding a way to add schools, and they did with 4 and help stabilize themselves. And it looked like everything was – and then the following summer, USC and UCLA in the Big 10, right? John Wilner with that story. And then on top of that, or was that Greg Flugar? And then on top of that, then you had how are they going to recover? How are they going to react? And they never really did. And then, of course, was the poaching of the Pac-12 with 4 schools going to the Big 12 a couple of more going to the Big Ten, and a couple others headed to the ACC, including Stanford and Cal. And then all of a sudden, this Florida State College Football Playoff Committee, and Florida State's angry. They have been angry. And the ACC, of course, was a part of that alliance. All of this to say, here comes some smoke that the ACC is about to implode again. Here comes some smoke that Florida State's going to just leave the conference. Well, it's really what they wanted to do back in the summer, in the spring, right? So I asked a Big 12 source, an administrator, how much have you, as a conference, they're in Vegas, the College Football Hall of Fame banquet. Derek Johnson from UT, Waco High, we'll have him on. Kansas City Chiefs, we'll have him on in about an hour. So I asked, have you discussed anything about the ACC implosion? Have you discussed anything about the scenarios? Is this on the table like right now? Is this any kind of imminent, or is this just, again, what's being reported on social media? Any report the Big 12 discussed, and this was, by the way, there was a report that they actually were briefed about this, that the Big 12 was briefed about this, AD's presidents last night. Any report the Big 12 discussed ACC implosion and scenarios did not happen. That is false. I'm also not aware of any meeting between the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark on that topic. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean there haven't been some conversations perhaps about, that might just be normal, like we would discuss something in football. But as far as anything like a briefing or a meeting last night or anything at all, being told that has not occurred, that doesn't mean it won't. It doesn't mean it might not. It doesn't mean it will. I'm just trying to cover the scenarios. But it has not been something that they were briefed on as far as because of what happened over the weekend with the college football playoff standings at FSU.
Well, look, FSU and Clemson are going to try to leave the ACC at some point. I don't think that's going to be tomorrow. And I don't think it's going to be – my guess is it's not going to be on the timetable that the realignment heads want it. The people who crave it. I don't know. I mean, if you've got to have teams of people going over a legal document like it's the freaking Magna Carta, to me, I think they would have found a way yet. It's probably now about raising money to get out, which, given today's news, here's the other thing. Given today's news of what the NCAA is proposing,
yes,
I'm not even sure that conferences will stay exactly as they are. Like,
even the big boys.
Even the big boys. Like, they're like, and we'll get to that topic in a second where we can give it its full, but so I would say that today's conference realignment news that's not news yet should be at least paused until we figure out what the proposal from the NCAA that's going to be talked about a lot actually means, which, to simplify it before we get into it, if you have not heard the details of it yet, it is drawing a very clear line in the sand of have and have-nots.
Oh, no, that line has been, sometimes it's been covered up with it when the tide comes in, but yeah.
But this is the NCAA actually saying it.
Yes.
Out loud.
Yes, absolutely.
Out loud.
The president of the
NCAA saying out loud, look, we understand that there are two tiers. There's more than two, but at least two tiers of finances involved here when it comes to college athletics. There are schools that have these resources and are pumping them in, and schools that don't. And there's NIL out there and athlete compensation, like all these different things that the modern NCAA needs to get their arms around. And I do think that this is not surprising this has come out, because I think if they really want Congress involved, Congress has told them, here's what you have to do for us to set guidelines for you, in that we can set something that is going to be overarching federal regulation so that you don't have 50 different state laws that are ever changing when somebody thinks up a new way to like circumvent the system. But you have to set up something first. And this is the first pass attempt at coming up with something that can be regulated. So let's get into that,
let's
because
get to what that is.
That, to me, is the biggest story in college athletics today. And I'm not surprised also that it's dropped the day after the college football committee created a lot of negative news.
Everybody's in Vegas.
Yeah, right? Everybody's in Vegas. But also put this out there and like try to get the shameful thing that happened in Grapevine out of the news cycle.
Yeah, it's one of those you want to wash your mouth out with soap or whatever. Charlie Baker proposing the creation of a new subdivision within Division I that would allow the highest resource schools the ability to compensate athletes directly through a trust fund and direct NIL payments. Here are a couple of things that are being, and again, there's a lot of, because Title IX is heavily involved with the amount of money given to the male athletes must be equaled by what you give to women. And Ross Dellinger, Nicole Auerbach, and others are looking into this and trying to figure out what they mean. The formulation, I won't read all of it because it's very lengthy, but it's like, okay, this is like somebody just said, remember the last time, I think it was McMuffin. By the way, the Egg McMuffin's pretty good, by the way, if you've ever had one of those. Remember what happened the last time we had some smoke about conference implosion? 90% of what was thrown up against social media fell to the ground. But all it takes is 5 or 10% to be legitimate, and eventually enough of it was to create chaos and a frenzy. The formation of a new subdivision made up of institutions with the highest resources that can directly compensate athletes through an enhanced educational trust fund requires the schools that opt into it an investment of at least $30,000 per year per athlete for at least half of the school's eligible athletes. Schools who would have to adhere to Title IX, providing equal monetary opportunities to both female and male athletes. The new subdivisions could create their own set of rules separate from the rest of Division I. Those rules would allow them the ability to address policies such as scholarship limits, roster size, as well as transfers and NIL. Finally, any Division I school would be able to enter into an NIL deal with its own athletes directly, which is not currently permissible, and also able to distribute to any athlete funding related to educational benefits without any caps on such compensation. A lot of word salad, but a lot of that we've thought about. Is that ever going to happen? At least it's just a proposal to get feedback from the membership of the NCAA.
I have 1,000 questions on this, on how it would work. So, okay, Jason Belzer was on yesterday, and he said that athlete compensation, revenue sharing was coming in 2025. And he thought that was. And it was pretty interesting to me because I was like, man, that's pretty optimistic that, just over a year from now they can get that done. But here you see it. It's on the, like, this is a proposal on the way for revenue sharing. But, okay, when you put Title IX, and he said that the problem with it, like I asked him about Title IX, he said, well, here's the deal. It doesn't apply to Title IX because, it is outside of that. Title IX requires you to put these things. Well, this would keep it within the bubble of Title IX, but that raises a different problem, Smokey. So say you have a $10 million all-in budget for your name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
Right? So more than likely, at a normal school, 60% of that's going to football, correct?
I would say more than that. But men's basketball is going to get a nice chunk, too.
So, the only reason I say that it's 60% is that there's more there's more athletes, and then it might be 70, and you don't need as many. But so 70%, let's say 70%, that leaves 20% for the rest of the school. Well, of that 20%, 15% is going to go to men's basketball, and 5% is going to go anywhere else. So to provide equal monetary opportunities so that you don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul, or in this case, rob Peter to pay Mary,
Is that a band?
Yeah, but you would have to then raise the money that you're putting into football because you're not going to take any money away from football players. That's who's driving this whole ship anyway. So you're going to have to put more money into paying football. And so then how many schools are really willing to do this?
How many of the 60,
have the wherewithal?
What are there, 65?
68.
68, Notre Dame, Independent, among a couple of others. How many, in your opinion, on the chat room, of the 68 who are considered to be
in the Power Four now?
In the Power Four, because the Pac-12 is gone, unfortunately, after the summer. How many of those 68 schools do you think, how many of them do you think will be able to afford this? Secondly, how many group of 5 schools might say, damn, we might have endowments or things that help us gain some extra money. We may want to be a part of that,
How
too.
many other SMUs are out there?
Yeah,
Like, how many other SMUs are out there that we don't know about? I don't think there's many, because they might have already made the, like, in the 4 months since SMU made their deal, they've been calling conference and go, listen, we won't take any money. We've got lots, too. I don't know. This is really interesting in how it will be, and it is... The NCAA has to start trying to make responses or make plans to deal with the future of college athletics.
Somebody shadow-bearded 30-40. Not a lot of schools can. Cougar Tracks, 20. Half for Terry Frazier. About 60 from Kyle Visser. Probably somewhere between, I don't know. He's doing a prediction on the Texas game. By the way, Softy from KJR is going to join us tomorrow. Chip Brown as well on that game. Retired stockbroker, Paul, go back. 25 cash, 25 other teams using credit cards.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Like, I have a debit card. I do not have a credit card. I can't trust myself because I've done stupid things before with a credit card. I have a debit card. So you know what that means? I can't buy something if it's not in my bank account. And it's been wonderful. It really is very, refreshing. Some people can do a credit card and still buy things with cash because they can pay the credit card bill when it comes in. So, now there's a statement from the NABC, which is the National Association of Basketball Coaches. The NABC commends the NCAA Charlie Baker on proposing forward-thinking changes to the future structure of Division I. Of particular significance, the proposed model for new Division I subdivision would offer greater flexibility for institutions to further invest in specific sports and athletes at their discretion, an outcome that has long been championed by the NABC and must remain an NCAA priority. There you go with that.
Well, that's good news. So that then they'll pick, but they still have to make sure that
But it doesn't include football. The NCAA doesn't run football.
No, it doesn't.
This is not about football, although it is because of the NIL. This is about everything other than football. Football's underneath the umbrella of the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe it won't be after a couple more days.
Yeah, but it's football still underneath the schools.
John Peterson, 46 schools max. So how about today? First of all, a couple of sources that gave me some quotes about any talk about the ACC, the implosion or whatever, and that's always going to be out there because Paul's pissed, and if he's pissed, Florida State's pissed, and if Florida State pissed, that means the ACC is pissed too.
Yeah.
All right.
They're there's a lot of questions that come with this, and I do think some of it is refreshing in that the NCAA is just kind of admitting, finally, they don't really admit who they are.
It's like tapping out.
It is okay, look, we can't, it was, if honestly, if you would put the NCAA in charge of you can only do the transportation that the NCAA picks, half the teams would be in 7 Model Ts, cranking the car in the front and going to games because they're well, the first teams went in Model Ts. What's changed? We can't change the model. And that they're so, this is admitting where you are.
Yep.
Admitting where you are. And that's rare. I just don't know how it all really works and plays out. And because one of the things we talked about with realignment was, when does it get to the point where all the money involved, when it's hey, listen, this just happened to Oregon State and Washington State. It just happened to them. But for the schools, even in the power conferences, where they say, listen, guys, we appreciate you always being our homecoming game, but that's not how the thing works anymore.
All right, here's a quote, or here's a tweet from Ross Dellinger on the Title IX part of it. This is from Ross Dellinger on what, the question about, what about Title IX? 50% of all cash deposited into the trust fund would need to go towards women to comply with Title IX. Does that mean the total amount spent on men has to be the same as spent on women? It's unclear, but the numbers who are receiving compensation need to be equal. So and Nicole Arbach had something very, very similar to this. I asked her to be on the show, Ross as well. They're both obviously today swarmed. Now, we'll have Bruce Feldman today on the transfer portal on this NCAA subdivision. And also, they did an article back on December the 1st about the quarterbacks. Today, Chandler Rogers, the quarterback at North Texas, has entered the transfer portal. He will have interest. More entered last night. There are reports about Dylan Gabriel in Oregon or Riley Leonard in Notre Dame. So we'll get into all that. There's a lot to get into with Bruce Feldman. Also, Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle, on the first couple of days of Willie Fritz with the Houston Cougars program.
But here's my question, and I'll just use Baylor as an example. So you can opt into this, and retired soccer broker kind of nailed it, like 25 schools on cash and 25 on credit. Well, Baylor's a small school, so there's a lot of money here, but to do something like this, some of it would, like, how do your alums make you do it? Like,
maybe some alums say I'm out. Some alums are going to have the egos, and that doesn't mean you can't. Then that's not a bad thing.
Like, as far as opting in, saying that you're going to put the resources towards thing.
How much did that stadium cost in a mile from here? $300 million or whatever it was. The pavilion, the new football operation, they're in. They may not have everything. They got to maybe go scratch and claw, like Mac Brown has said before, between facilities and NIL, with what GXG is doing now. With the NIL ramping it up, and it's obvious that they have. Now can they do that and use it for the transfer portal? They'll try, and they hope that it helps. But they're in. They may not, may think they're a small private school. You think USC is in?
Yeah.
Well, you think TCU's in?
I would think so. But, again, I don't know, the inner workings of the administration, it depends on how big this is.
It's not even what you have going on right now. It's what you have spent in the last 5 to 10 years to get yourself in this position. I think more people than we think would say, no, we're in, and then maybe they then have to declare athletic bankruptcy at some point down the road.
Yeah, they have to figure out, that's my question is, how many people do this because they've already invested this much, and now here we get this game-changing thing, and you're like, okay, well, we have to go. We have to do it because we've already tried to be in this level. So I would assume that the schools in the power conferences are all going to try to do this, but I would not be surprised to see some go, we just can't.
No, there's some that might tap out.
We just can't.
There might be some that tap out. All right, so there we are. I'm trying to go down the list. So then we had the statement from the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Ross Dellinger on revenue sharing, the quotes from a Big 12 source on any kind of thoughts that there has been a briefing involving the ACC and the possibility of an implosion in FSU and whatever, shooting that down. But that doesn't mean there might not be off to the side the possibility of conversations. Now, the transfer portal. Oh, my God. Matt Zenitz in the transfer portal. Over 1,000. And that was just yesterday. That was yesterday evening. Over 1,000. That doesn't include today. You want to follow him? You want to get on the feed of Max Olson? Over 1,000 in the portal. And, of course, a lot of them are, you name a position. 1,000 plus the first day. They're going to end up, what did Jason Belzer tell us yesterday? They might end up with 5,000 or so before it's all said and done. My question is this. Listen, I'm not get off my lawn. I maybe wasn't is this really what you want? I love the fact players are now getting paid. Some people are still with their hand, they've drawn the line. No, my opinion doesn't matter. But is this really what you want? I'll tell you this. The worst thing I ever did was give Paxton my cell phone number because he won the Texas Beef House, actually because of the tornadoes that tore through Perryton, so I wanted to make sure we could help them. And I asked him, is this what you want? Even if you're an Alabama or Texas or a Michigan fan, is this really what you want? And I think most of those schools say, hell yeah, because we can win across the board in all those different ways. So there's that with the comment about the transfer portal. Now, Dylan Gabriel, I mentioned Oregon. Now, these are not official decisions. Riley Leonard, Notre Dame. I mentioned Chandler Rogers from North Texas is in the portal. There's a Pete Thamel tweet. UTSA freshman All-American linebacker at one point, Trey Moore, a stud, is in the transfer portal. Someone will pluck him up and he'll do well. Now, one other note on comings and goings. Bryson Washington, the All-American running back at Franklin High School, Announcing last night, thanks to GXG, the NIL collective for Baylor, he's back. Now they have Richard Reese locked in, Bryson Washington locked in, whoever else they bring in that they sign in December or February, maybe something else in the portal, I don't know. Is Dominic Richardson, does he have a year left?
They're waiting to hear back from him with the running backs coaches that has changed
They
over.
haven't, yeah.
He's waiting to see.
And we kind of have an idea.
Right.
Did Grayson report that, or has that been reported?
Grayson had mentioned it earlier on the Bearcast.
Okay, but the running backs coach is going to be somebody that opens up some eyes that I know, and I know his father. That's as far as I'm going to go. Now, Texas safety Derek Williams. This is a story that affects the semifinal game with Washington. Remember the targeting call. It was a blindside hit. And it was helmet to helmet. We can argue that. I saw somebody he's getting suspended because of a football play. I think we've officiated the game. But he was ejected. He has a half-game suspension. Chip Brown saying he'll join us tomorrow, Chip, at 4, that he appealed it. The appeal was lost. He will miss the first half of the game against the University of Washington in the semifinals.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And it's going to, a secondary also that's not, I'm going to say they're not good. They're fine. But I mean, but that's the weakness of the team, right? If you had to point to how can you possibly beat this Texas team, the secondary, which is why this Washington matchup is super interesting because Washington's strength is Michael Penix and their 3 stud wide receivers that he especially Rome Odunze, that he just paints a portrait every week, seemingly to them, especially in crunch time. So that's going to be really interesting. And to not have them for a half, Washington is not a team, and Oregon showed this. Washington's not a team that you want to get into let's trade points.
Well, that was the bowl game last year. But again, and I know that both teams have their strengths and some of them have a little bit of a weakness. We need to break because Bruce Feldman's coming up, and The Athletic had written an article about the transfer portal and quarterbacks, and also he wrote the article yesterday, what the college football playoff got wrong in Florida State, but the main core is college football has always had the best regular season. Is that something that might change because of not just the 12-game playoff, but other things that we might see in the next year or maybe a few years. All right, so again, our lineup includes Bruce Feldman, Joseph Duarte. We also have John McClain. We'll hear from Tim Brando at 5, Paul's Top 5 to close out the show. We'll hear from UT All-American and now a member officially tonight of the College Football Hall of Fame and Derek Johnson out in Vegas. Pete Nakos of On3 on the transfer portal and NIL. We're not done. We got a lot to get to. Stick your head in a tank of gasoline. Light it with a match. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Some of you have made fun. I endorse Stonewood Dental. My God, why would I not? Because of all of the care and the work they have done on my dental work, how I have screwed that up over the years, and eventually it just caught up with me. How I used to sit there and have lozenges all of the time, even during a game broadcast or sleeping, that kind of helped soothe my throat because I would get raspy and sometimes certain parts of the year, my throat would my voice would disappear. And I mean just sugar. And not taking care of it other than the typical, yes, you brush your teeth 2 or 3 times a day, whatever. My front bridge, remember, got loose about, 2 or 3 months ago. Dr. Steve Childress fixed it somehow. It was a miracle. And then they fit me up last week with a retainer that allows me not to be worried about the damn thing coming out again anytime soon. Eventually, I'll have to have even more critical or major front teeth surgery, but they set me up with a retainer, and I feel great. The confidence is back to not worry about, my God, my front teeth are moving. They're amazing. Their staff is incredible. Dr. Steve Childress, who has served our country and also done dental work on our soldiers overseas. Stonewood Dental, my dentist, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
You don't want to miss our best price deals during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. This month, you can save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new 2023 Rams. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, Ram trucks give you that first-class feel. With premium options like luxurious leather trim seating, surround view cameras, plus exceptional legroom and storage, hurry in and shop our great selection in-store or online today. Shop an award-winning dealership with award-winning products, Allen Samuels in Waco.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He is... When you talk about college football coverage, and he does a lot, Bruce Feldman on television, national TV, even, of course, pro football. Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. Bruce, we have the opening of the transfer portal, NIL, of course, all the time. The college football standings released on Sunday that created some havoc. Now we have the NCAA discussing the possibility of a subdivision. My God, what else could go right now at one time in college football, and it's great to be able to cover the sport.
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now between everything that's just gone on, I feel like, in the last 72 hours.
So let's discuss right now first the transfer portal. You all, Max and you, wrote an article, College Football Quarterback Transfer Portal Tracker, Best Players Available and Decisions. Has the list even been better, deeper than you thought even when you wrote that a week ago?
Yeah, it has. And, honestly, Max and I turned into the quarterback transfer portal tracker because, we're updating it basically every hour, it seems like, with the different names that come in or the different intel we're getting on, Grayson McCall was a 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year, and now he's expected to be visiting NC State this weekend. And so it's recruiting, but it's recruiting where now a lot of these guys are proven. whereas before it's just, they're 4-star, they're 3-star, whatever. And they're speculative or projection. A lot of these guys now are proven. I mean, we updated our story to reflect that the two best quarterbacks in the MAC conference, Curtis Rourke and DeQuan Finn, both went in the portal today. And they're guys who would probably be legit, mid to upper level starters in most of the Group of 5 conferences from the coaches we've talked to.
Bruce, Kyle McCord is a very strange one to me. This is a kid who is 11-1, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, had a really good season. Seemingly the only thing he didn't do was beat Michigan. How is an 11-1 quarterback at Ohio State in the portal?
I think what you're having in some of these cases is quarterbacks who are curious to see, NIL is a real thing. Are they getting the best deal they can? And I think they're checking to see, are we the best fit for you? And do you think I'm the best fit for you? Kind of thing. And what I do think is significant in this case with McCord is, who played high school football with Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to be moving on from Ohio State to the NFL after this season. But you have a guy in McCord who's playing for a coach in Ryan Day, who's developed a lot of NFL talent right now. And his receiver room is going to be hard pressed, even without Marvin Harrison Jr., to be any better than what he's going to have. So we'll see what kind of options they have. We'll also see who does Ohio State go after, because we do think they're going to swing big. One of the names that I think that will be interesting to follow, who's somebody who, on one hand, I understand why he's making the move, and that's Dylan Gabriel, who is a terrific quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, put up huge numbers at OU this year and led them to a win over Texas. Does Dylan Gabriel follow his old offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, who's now the head coach of Mississippi State? Does Oregon get on the mix? Does USC try to get him? Does Ohio State look at him and think, okay, he is much more of a dynamic athlete than what we have now in Kyle McCord? So I think these are the dominoes that are going to be interesting to watch how they start to fall.
Bruce, there are always some diamonds in the rough, some guys that may play that people don't know enough about unless they are really true college football fans or watch it intently. The MAC or Ohio Valley or the Sun Belt or perhaps the Mountain West. Are there enough of those that even if you miss out on that top level, there are a few nuggets, so to speak, available to others like Baylor? They've retained Sawyer Robertson. Blake Shapen's in the portal. He's not on this list with much of what you've put here, but still a guy that's played a lot. If they miss out on him, do you feel like there's still enough out there where they'll be able to be just fine?
I do think there is. It'll be interesting to see, who Jake Spavital decides is the best fit for him, because he's had a prolific quarterbacks almost everywhere he's been. I mean, there are guys in there, the Boise State quarterback, Kalen Green, who's a Texas kid. I'm not saying this is one of the names I would expect to end up there, but 6'6", 225 was on our freaks list. Really, really good running quarterback, but he's still pretty raw as a passer. There are guys like that. There's a really good quarterback, a dual threat guy out of Holy Cross, Matthew Sluka, who's a big, strong kid, former lacrosse player. He's a really good runner. He's an okay passer. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to get a lot of interest. We're going to see probably a few more names, I think, enter the portal, but there's so many guys I feel like we've written about or talked to coaches about, where I would say there's probably upwards of 40-plus quarterbacks, and that's of the guys who have played a lot. Take a guy like Brock Vandegrift, who was the backup at Georgia, has got everything people like in terms of you talk to coaches inside that program and people familiar with him. He's 6'3", terrific arm, really athletic. Coaches, love his work ethic, and a lot of people think feel like he's probably a better fit in the spread offense than he was in Georgia's system. Kentucky's somebody to watch there. Is that somebody that Baylor tries to make a run at? There are certainly talented guys that are out there. It's just some of them might be rolls of the dice where they haven't played that much. So you may think you have a good feel for them ready to blossom. But then there's these other guys, especially the guys in the MAC and some of the smaller conferences, who are probably at least have a lot more reps in them in actual games.
Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com, Fox Sports with us on 365 Sports.
Bruce, what's your best guess on Cam Ward and where he might end up?
He's somebody that we've heard could be leaning towards the NFL, but maybe if the NIL money is right, and we're talking about into the seven figures probably, does he go to a USC or an Oregon or a Washington? Is he somebody USC tries to pull? I think that he is, right now he is one of the top two names on our tracker. It's him and Dylan Gabriel. And he's played a ton of football, as people know, in that state. He really blossomed in an incarnate word, and then Eric Morris brought him with him. He had some really good moments. He didn't play behind the greatest offensive line this year, and I think to his credit and to the rest of the Washington State players, I think it was a really tough year for them, just given all the stuff happening around the program, with both Washington State and Oregon State being left behind in all the craziness that happened with the Pac-12 imploding.
Bruce, what are your thoughts about what Charlie Baker at least put out for the NCAA brethren to try to figure out with this NCAA subdivision? Is this just like, oh my goodness, or is this just a matter of time, or do you feel like this thing will stick, and how much of it will stick?
I think it's going in that direction. Look, we've seen Jim Harbaugh especially be very outspoken about taking care of the players and having to be more proactive. At the very least, the NCAA has always been reactive. So I think this is going to be interesting to see how much momentum it gets. At least, he's used this format to try to get some consensus going, because I feel like the NCAA is always digging out of a hole. And even sometimes when it's like some of the craziness that maybe goes on with the CFP, that's not really related to the NCAA, even though it's kind of lumped in together. So I think the timing of this announcement or these comments, I think, are noteworthy, just in the fact that I think right now you feel like the sport is at a little bit of a crossroads.
Bruce, do you think that there would be some schools that are in the power conferences that wouldn't be able to do that? To say we're a high income university, high resource, we just can't go there.
I think there might be a few on the end. I don't think they would be Big Ten schools, and I certainly don't think they would be SEC schools. But then you get into some of the other leagues, you're not entirely sure how resourced they are. I mean, they're definitely not the same as what most of the rest of those conferences are playing with. So I think how it gets sorted out will be interesting to see.
One of the things, and I know you got to go, there's a lot going on, and we appreciate your time. Like somebody brought up some of the private schools. Baylor has a brand new football stadium. They have a brand new pavilion opening up in January, a brand new football ops. They can't even afford not to afford to be able to stick in this. And they're going to have, Baylor has more money than people realize when they need that money. But would it be, let's have the 68 Power 5, Autonomy 5, or independent schools. Would you say there's maybe 5 to 8 that would have to make a really tough, hard decision on that?
I mean, it might be as many as that number. Like, I feel like Baylor is better positioned for that because of some of the resources, because of the resources that have been poured in. I think the school has a very proactive and savvy AD in charge, so I do feel like there's a lot of things that line up better for Baylor than they do for a bunch of other teams in some of the rest of Power 5 as it's structured now.
You want to ask him about Florida State?
I do.
And by the way, Bruce has a story about the college football season always was the best, and what happened with the omission of Florida State. Paul?
Bruce, admittedly, look, I'm an alum of Florida State, so I feel several different kinds of ways about this, but try to be objective about it. I really enjoyed your column about the regular season and what it means, and they always bragged about that. It's about that this is there was the reason we didn't have a playoff for the long time, right? Because it was going to corrupt the regular season. It seems like they've just done that because of I guess they couldn't tell the SEC no. I can't figure it all the way down. But Bruce, your thoughts on what the College Football Playoff Committee did and able to maybe now hide because it's the last year of the 4 and they're going to 12 next year and it won't happen that way again.
Yeah, it's pretty dubious, to be honest. Like I when I saw this, I'm sitting there thinking, you can't leave out Florida State when they're 13-0. They won a Power 5 conference. on top of this, it's like they beat two SEC opponents. I get it. Florida's not very good this year. LSU is. I mean, it's not a playoff team, but it's got the best player in the SEC by far, and probably the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels. And that game was 45-17 with a minute left. Florida State was crushing them. And so now they're going to look at it and go, well, Florida State was playing their third-string quarterback, and they didn't look very good on Saturday night. You know who didn't look very good a week ago? Alabama. They barely beat Auburn on the last play, and that's not a great Auburn team. It's an Auburn team that got smashed at home by New Mexico State. But the reality is, you know, the people who run the CFP and run college football could not fathom the idea of a playoff without an SEC team. And yes, the SEC has been the best conference for the last 2 decades. But the truth is, this has not been a great year for the SEC. It's different. And, you know, Alabama lost head-to-head to Texas. It was in Alabama's own backyard. And I think people can make whatever parallels. You see a lot of people on ESPN throwing out all sorts of different parallels. And one of the ones I've heard was, well, Ohio State, when they had their backup quarterback, Cardell Jones, the year they won the national title, they crushed Wisconsin 59-0 in the Big Ten title game, whereas Florida State struggled with Louisville. The difference on that is that Ohio State team already had a loss. They lost by 2 touchdowns at home earlier in the year. And they had only beaten one ranked team the whole season before the Big Ten title game. So to compare that to what you're talking about with Florida State, I think for them, I just felt like there was a lot of spinning going on. And I feel for the Florida State players because they're the ones who got squeezed out of this. The last year of the 4 teams, you know, but I just felt like the games have to matter. If we're going to sit there and go, who do we think is the best or who Vegas thinks, no matter what, if Georgia could lose 2 games, they're still going to shoehorn Georgia in because they're a 2-time national champs and they're Georgia, you know, and I just don't think that's right. And unfortunately for Florida State, that's the way it played out this year.
Bruce, I've said this to others, but theathletic.com, and I constantly promote what you guys have. We appreciate your time, Max Olson, Nicole, Sam Kahn, among many others. It is the only subscription of anything online media that I have no problem paying the bill when it comes in, and it's not very much when it hit my credit card. I want you to know that because I know you are a part of the ground floor. Appreciate everything you do and appreciate your time today.
Always a pleasure. I appreciate the kind words. I know our staff is a big fan of what you guys do, and thanks again for the time.
Bruce Feldman with us, theathletic.com and Fox Sports, on the stories. One that they wrote back, he and Max Olson, on the quarterbacks as they're flooding the transfer portal, where they are now, and even more who have added their names to it. And there will be more. And then you might even get more again the next time it opens. Hell, there's a month left. And then on top of that, his thoughts about college football's best regular season in all of sports. And is that going to be affected based on the 12-team playoff? Not everybody's going to be happy, but could that be affected based on the 12-team playoff? Yeah. I would rather have the 12-team playoff and maybe figure out. I still think that Alabama playing whoever, or, hey, Texas, Michigan next year, you mean to tell me that won't be a mother of all mothers of like a $10+ million ranking? Yes. The question is, will the entire season still be the best in sports?
Look, I think it just flips when the important times are. Like, I think this is going to mean November's more important and more exciting than September. Because, again, okay, so say you lose your quarterback for 2 weeks and you lose 2 close games in September, and you're sitting at 3-2 at some time in October, and you start to get hot, and then all of a sudden you rattle off 7 wins in a row. Well, then those games in November, especially when you're trying to get to that 7th win and be 10-2 and be 12th in the country, becomes way more important than, well, we'll get them next year. That's how college football was, right? Well, we'll get them next year. Lost those 2 games. Dang it. So it takes away maybe some of the juice of September, where, especially, in the situation of, say, I'm going to say Alabama and Texas. Texas was the only good non-conference team that Alabama had on their schedule, right? So if Alabama was anybody else but Alabama and lost that game and had the same kind of non-conference schedule they had in a lesser conference in the SEC, then you can you could maybe knock Alabama, like a school like that, out because they lost their one big game. That's not going to happen anymore.
All right, so because of last night's consequences, Trevor Lawrence, I'm not sure if you saw it, had a very bad leg injury. I don't know what the latest update is. I've seen ankle, I've seen others. But this was something I got to give, who is my friend that put this up to me in the direct message, Cat? No, this is this is from Space Coast Knight on the chat, Joel. The NFL Playoff Committee will now have to vote out the Jaguars from playoff contention despite their record because Trevor Lawrence is injured.
Yeah, well, the Bengals would have already been out, but now the Jake Browning ripped it up last night.
Yeah, Joe Burrow out. A lot of the fact that entire, golly, the AFC, there's like two teams, I said schools, two teams that have their quarterback, Mahomes with Kansas City, Allen with Buffalo, and hell, they're 6-6 or whatever it might be. All right, when we come back, Joseph Duarte's been all over, and even beforehand, the Willie Fritz hiring at Houston. Some thoughts about that. Hall of Fame linebacker Derek Johnson. We have a great friend. It's Q, your boy Q, who worked with us at radio earlier back in the day before this show began. He's in Vegas and running what is going on in Vegas. He's bumped into Derek Johnson during all the festivities and all the introductions and more. He's going to go get his Hall of Fame jacket fitted in a minute. And Q sent along his interview with Derek Johnson about where he started, Texas in the semifinals, and his career. That's next. This is 365 Sports, Texas Beef House. I spoke with Samantha Duvall. I'm going to record an interview with her later on today around 6:30 on the newest specials. Remember back, a couple of months ago or so, a month and a half ago, they had the online auction you could buy almost anything of what their product is. Farm-raised, aged Wagyu beef. I mean, that's amazing. And it went better than they could have ever expected. So then this past weekend, they did an online auction, and it went incredibly well again. You know, and when you sponsor and endorse a company, you always want, when you ask them how it's business, you want them to tell you great, because that means something's working and maybe it's us. But I do know for a fact that many of you, those who watch or listen to this show, those in the premium section of Sikkim365.com, and even friends of mine, have ordered product from TexasBeefHouse.com just outside of Tyler and White House with their aged Wagyu beef. Their product is freaking great. It's amazing. It's delicious, mouth-watering. You say it, whether it's steaks, sausage, tri-tip, brisket, what you want, that's what they have. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for more information. Tell Samantha and Aaron and the family we said hi.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sick 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, R, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kenna, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Willie Fritz, the new head football coach at the University of Houston. Dana Holgorsen out, Willie Fritz in, and he was introduced, of course, this week. Joseph Duarte was all over this from day one. From also others who were interested and or interviewed, joins us from the Houston Chronicle on 365 Sports. Everybody in H-Town pretty happy with what they have now with Willie?
Well, as soon as he walked up to the podium, somebody yelled, "Merry Fritzness."
Oh,
so,
I love it.
And he yelled out a go-to. So, yeah, I would say that day one of the Willie Fritz era was a success, and it was a stark contrast to 5 years earlier with the beginning of the Dana Holgorsen era. So I think they feel like they got the guy that they wanted all along, and now let's see how far he can catch up here in the transfer portal recruiting stuff, and then going into year one next year.
What do you think the difference was between Willie Fritz and any other candidates that got him over the finish line?
The experience factor. Now, Gary Patterson's name was thrown out there, and yeah, he's got a lot of success and a lot of wins. That didn't get as far down the line. So in terms of the candidates that we know of that interviewed, it's just Willie Fritz brings 30 plus years of winning. Someone that they feel is an experienced guy when it comes to age, and somebody that can go in there and be responsible and accountable, and be the face of the program.
He has been successful everywhere he's been. And I know that like 5 years ago seems like forever. Obviously, he's done really well at Tulane, we know. But he was at Sam Houston State. He knows the area, even though Houston will, recruit nationally wherever they need to. How much of that mattered at all, the success he had that was right outside of Houston in their backyard?
Oh, absolutely. He has those ties with the Texas high school coaches. And, the loudest ovation of the day came when he said, we are going to recruit the heck out of the state of Texas. And then he said, why wouldn't we? So he knows what's available, what his backyard looks like, so to speak, and that they're going to make a run at these top-level players from inside the Houston area. And as you guys know, and being around the Big 12 and major conferences here in Houston, there's a lot of talent. You don't necessarily get, if you're Houston, you don't get the 5 and 4 stars all the time, but you should be in the running to get some talented guys. And you look at where Houston was ranked recruiting wise at the time Dana got fired. I think they were 102nd, and that was last in the Power 5. That's to me, you have to really not be doing anything for that to happen. I mean, that almost seems impossible. So Willie Fritz is going to place an emphasis, and it sort of brought back Tom Herman vibe for me. Not to that extent, but that he was going to place that much emphasis on the state of Texas.
Why did Dana fall behind?
That's a good question. I mean, if we're talking on the field, I think the biggest issue he had was that he should have taken over the play calling duty. He sort of relinquished that, and then when Shannon Dawson went to Miami, he decided not to hire an offensive coordinator and thought that he could get by with kind of a group effort with two other assistants, and that didn't work out. And I think Houston saw that because they brought in a guy that had a reputation as this innovative play caller, put up points, and he wasn't even calling the plays. So that was one. And then off the field, in terms of recruiting, that's a good question. I don't know if they just underestimated how much work it was going to be. And maybe Dana, I don't even know if Dana thought that when he got here 4 years ago, if they were even going to be in the Big 12. So it seemed like they took a kind of a passive approach to recruiting. And, he made that comment at his radio show about the ship has sailed on the 24 class when it comes to high schools. And he really put a lot of emphasis on the transfer portal. He was talking about 30 to 40 guys coming in on the portal. And if you're trying to develop a program and build one, that's not a sustainable model. Yeah, you can bring some guys in and plug some holes and stuff, but for the long haul, that just sort of decimates your roster in terms of how you build it moving forward. And I just don't think the development aspect was as high on his list as going out and getting guys from the portal that had already been somewhere and you kind of plug them in and fill some holes.
Joseph, if he had beaten Texas, would he still be the head coach at Houston?
Absolutely. I think if he had won one of those, and it wouldn't have even had to be Texas. If he had won one of those last three games, I think we would be looking at it. And that's not asking for much. Cincinnati was on a 7-game losing streak, and they just no-showed in that game. And then Oklahoma State was number 23, I believe, when they were in town, and Houston had a 14-point lead 2 times. And then, by the Central Florida game, they were never in that one. But if you win one or both of those games, and really the backbreaker was the Rice loss. You fall behind 28-0, and then you lose in double overtime. If you factor in one of those wins, that win in Cincinnati or Oklahoma State, you're going to a bowl game, and Dana Holgerson's still your coach.
Joseph, we had Chris Pesman on this right after Big 12 Media Days in the summer, a couple weeks, and he made a joke on the show about maybe one day Dana gets tired of NIL and the transfer portal and retires, and every joke has some truth to it, but I kind of stuck with me as they struggled this year in that maybe we were seeing that this is just not something that he wants to do to the level that it needs to be done in modern college football.
Well, first of all, NIL was a major frustration topic for Dana, and Houston is at the bottom, at least in the Big 12 of the support that they get for football. Now, Kelvin gets, with what they're doing in basketball, they get a totally different type of NIL money compared to what football's bringing in for retaining players. And I think Dana saw that last year when Alton McCaskill ended up leaving and going to Colorado. So that was issue number one. And then every chance Dana got, he mentioned how far Houston was behind in facilities, and that was having their own football operations center. And as it would have it, Dana put in the first $1 million of this new $130 million facility that's going to open in 2025. So I hope he at least gets a brick with his name on it outside the complex to sort of acknowledge what he put into that, because that was his dream. That was the thing that he wanted to get done. It was going to get done, and now he's not going to be here to see that thing get built and the program use it.
All right, Joseph, you did a great job because I obviously follow you. We've talked many times since back when even before Houston joined or was going to join the Big 12. Great job. He had the great win against Baylor, although Baylor wasn't very good. That overtime win, you thought maybe would get them some momentum. It didn't work out. I like Willie Fritz. We've had him on a couple of times when he was at Tulane. He's going to build it, I think, the right way. I think he'll do well. The question, of course, can they go out and get enough people to make them competitive immediately, and the transfer portal and NIL and much more allowed you to do that. We appreciate your time. Enjoy, not a deep breath because you got to follow them all over the place, but thank you for your time and great job covering that story.
Hey, you guys have a happy holiday, okay?
All
Talk
right.
to you in basketball season.
Yes, sir. My goodness. Somebody mentioned in the, I forgot who it was, BU, I think it was, in the chat a minute ago about the top 25 in basketball. Baylor playing Seton Hall tonight in a Big East, Big 12 battle, whatever they call it. And yeah, Arizona 1, Houston 2, Kansas 3, Baylor 6, and there's Texas and Oklahoma. And I don't want to forget anybody because I'll get chewed out for it, but BYU. There's some good teams, and that doesn't include those who are also just lurking. And appreciate Joseph with that information. Now, here's a note on Marcus Satterfield. He's the one that is on the road for Nebraska. He's their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And my God, if they would, and this is not, I mean Harburg and Sims, I'm not trying to be critical, but if they could have cut back one turnover a game, because they led the country with turnovers. Just imagine if they had a quarterback that could protect the ball a little bit better, both fumbling when they had the ball in their hands, strip sacks because of protection, or just terrible interception decisions. He was in Waco today talking to Blake Shapen. He also is on his way, or probably by now, in Columbus to discuss Kyle McCord as possibly an option. They must find somebody. And they have a young man from Missouri that was committed, or Nebraska, who was committed to Missouri, high school kid that's a part of their next class. But, man, they have to find somebody like everybody does.
Well, no offense to Blake Shapen, but I can get Kyle McCord. I'm getting Kyle McCord.
No, you got to.
I mean, look, he's 11-1, and I know he had Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka, and the guys that he had there. But I do think that behind a good offensive line and a run-first offense, that Blake Shapen can win you some games. I think he's shown that. I don't think that the offense that Jake Spavital is going to install, to me, is the best for Blake Shapen. Although it's very quarterback friendly, but I do think that you need somebody who has a little bit more, and not that Blake's escapability isn't good, but maybe a little bit more, oops, we let him go. That wasn't a good idea. And so I don't think that Blake, I mean, Sawyer Robertson didn't give you that threat either, but and maybe McCord doesn't, so we'll see. Well, I guess McCord's going to Nebraska, but or talking to Nebraska. I just think that Blake Shapen and Matt Rule's offense and Marcus Satterfield's offense, that makes sense to me. I mean, like, that's the kind of thing I think he'd be good at.
They were the ones that, knew him at Evangel in Shreveport when they were looking for him. Of course, you look again, we mentioned this yesterday with Drones, Zeno, Shapen, Bohannon. I know C.J. Rogers, who went to Texas State. Now he's in the transfer portal again. There's another quarterback that I may be forgetting that was a part of that mix. They've been through a bunch. Baylor has been through a ton.
Everybody does now.
Yeah.
Look.
Well, even when they were really good under the old offense with Bryles and company, they had injuries. Remember, RG3 his freshman year tore his knee. And then they had what happened with God bless it, man, with Seth Russell having the cracked rib, and then Bryce Petty had the transverse process. That was cracked. I mean, they've been through it. But you know what? The quarterback's a job where it's violent. They're going to be hurt. A lot of people are. Quinn Ewers has been fortunate, but had the shoulder a couple of different times in the last couple of years, and then he went down knocked the wind out of him. Don't you know that Texas fans had to go, whoa, wait a minute. And then when Worthy went down, and looked like, he could have cracked his ankle right there. He'll be fine. And the dynamic receiver they have in Xavier Worthy. Shadow Bearded, when my internet hiccups, it happens in other channels as well. I don't think it's y'all's channel. There's a couple of you have mentioned that. I have shown zero, zippo, nada, any kind of blemishes or blips with what we have on our feed.
And we won't, because of United
UPN.
Private Network. Yep, we won't.
UPN. All right, Garrett, don't have the graphic. I know we have Derek Johnson coming up, and it's a recorded interview. Paul, I'm going to try to put you on the spot.
Okay.
To see if the chat room's on its A game today, and then we'll hear from the great Derek Johnson. There have been 7. Don't put it up, Garrett. There have been 8 schools in college football since the College Football Playoff Committee began having standings that have been ranked number one in the standings when released since it began in 2014. 8 schools. I could fall asleep, be hungover, hit my head on whatever, and I could get 7 of them without blinking. One of those 7 would have been a little bit difficult. There's one in there. I wonder who all can get it. So right now, start firing off who you think, doesn't mean the most, the 8 schools who have been ranked number one at least once in the College Football Standings Committee history. Roger the Dodger, you're right. Roger takes Tennessee once last year. Who else?
Well, Alabama and Georgia.
Why did you just give 2? You're hateful on this.
Well, I mean, like we can fast forward.
Alabama 24 times, Georgia 15. Nobody else has been ranked in double digits other than those 2.
I mean, I can think of
Shadow Bearded, Bracket Cat, MBM. Thank you. I thought people would forget this. Dak Prescott and Mississippi State in 2014. We were at the Texas Baylor game, watching it at some kind of shindig, barbecue place when Prescott was running all over A&M that day.
Yeah.
All right, so wait a minute. And Mississippi State's done. John Hammond, Ohio State's done. Kim, no. Auburn, no. Clemson, yes. Randall, Braxton, Harrison, LSU, yes. We're missing one. Nope. Bracket Cat had Michigan. There we go.
Yeah, he did 3. Why are you on his ass? Come on.
Because he's
not fair.
He's a customer. A
not
customer
fine.
is always right.
That's absolutely not true.
Have you ever read the book by the Sewell, Mr. Sewell, who has Sewell Cadillac?
That is absolutely not true.
Alabama 24 times, Georgia 15, Clemson 8, Ohio State 5, LSU and Mississippi State 3, Michigan and Tennessee 1. When I looked at that list, thank you, Garrett, for the graphic. Did you put the graphic up? What really blew me away is like, damn, that's not many teams, but by the time you get to that part of the year, most of these guys are the alphas anyway, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't change much. So there we are with that. When we come back, former Texas All-American and about to be College Football Hall of Famer Derek Johnson in Vegas, a good friend of ours, Quint Myers. He was there to get an interview with him.
Keont.
I call him Quint. Your boy Q, who's working in Vegas, worked with us for a long time in Waco, hosted a show with Craig. He had a chance to catch up with Derek Johnson. That is next, and this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, 1943. Good gosh. Been in business since 1943. They're bigger, better, faster, and stronger than ever before. Pipe, steel, metal. What you need to build buildings, real estate, commercial. They just have all of the equipment you need, all the product, I guess, you need. And on top of that, about a year ago, in fact, what is today? December the 4th? December, 4th or 7th last year? They opened up and moved into their brand new building that's on Loop 340 and Highway 6 on the east side of 35. It is a beautiful place. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger. They have been in business, have helped make sure their customer base is not like you go there, you need one thing. Haul something to wherever you're going to build something, because they'll do that for you if you need them to. They outlasted the big box stores that can maybe charge less because they have so much of it. Now they have so much of it, and they still want you to come back, and you do. Many of you since 1943 for a second, 5th, 12th, 60th time if you're a contractor or somebody who builds. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
A Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak.
We'll update you on who won the Nagurski Award, the trophy, the Broyles Award for the best assistant coach. When Paul told me who it was and the way he said it, it made so much sense. It should have been unanimous. And then also who are up for the what candidates, the finalists for the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award. The College Football Hall of Fame will induct a new class. Remember, we had Oregon star LaMichael James, played in the NFL. I covered him in high school at Liberty Ilo High School in Texarkana. We had Derek Johnson on, former Waco High Lion, UT All-American, Kansas City Chief, played for a bit with the Raiders, retired a Kansas City Chief. He was in Vegas, and our great friend, Keont Myers, had a chance to visit with Texas linebacker and Hall of Famer Derek Johnson.
Here with Derek Johnson, just had the press conference for the College Football Hall of Fame get wrapped up. How does that sound as an inductee in 2023?
Man, it's surreal. It's surreal being up there with all with all those guys. I mean, best athletes in the world. I mean, you just name it, just go down the list. And I mean, every single person, player or coach, has done some amazing things in college football, and I get to be sitting with them. I get to be amongst them in that small circle, so I feel blessed.
What was it like being a young man from Waco, making your way down to Austin, obviously a long time in the NFL, but just what was that journey? A lot of folks don't believe that you're going to make something out of yourself coming out of Waco, and you did it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Waco is a small blue-collar town.
Yeah.
Not saying a lot comes from there. It's not a lot of growth there, but if you want to do something in your life, you can do it wherever you at. And Waco is not an excuse. Waco is a platform at the end of the day. And I tried to use that, and proud of being a Waco High Lion, at the end of the day, and being able to represent my town, my city, and where I'm from, and take it wherever I go. If it's to Austin, if it's to Kansas City, wherever it is. But being a guy from Central Texas, I take a lot of pride in that.
You just heard a video and saw a video from Mac Brown, your former coach, just congratulating you on this honor. What did that mean to you?
It meant the world to me. Coaches mean a lot, especially the really, really good ones. They mean a lot. They really help us as players to develop us. We're human, so we go through things on and off the field, and they have to manage all that, and they have to do other stuff, PR stuff. They have a big job to do. So my hat's off to Coach Brown and being a second father to a lot of us when we came to University of Texas and being able to succeed at it. He's a great example of what a man should be on the field and off the field.
What do you think about Texas in the college football playoffs? Steve Sarkisian got them things turned around in there in Austin, huh?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's a good time to be a Longhorn right now, being able to be in the college football playoff. We're a deserving team.
Yeah.
A couple teams got left off where you can be in that company. You just never know. But God's put us in position to still pursue something that we had a goal at the beginning of the year, and that's winning the national championship. And we have an opportunity to play for that, which is huge.
Again, we're here with Derek Johnson. He's going into the 2023 College Football Hall of Fame. We heard from a lot of different other players and coaches that are going into the Hall of Fame. And Coach Kramer in particular just talked about you guys and said, don't worry about what I'm talking about. Just worry about what these guys. They're talking about their journey and mentioned being in high school football and mentioned if you don't have a center, Henry's going to be your center. I mean, you play Texas high school football. You know it's a different animal.
Absolutely. Texas high school football has equipped me to play in college, to play in NFL. So being able to play high school football in Texas really elevated my game and put me on a level where I was ready. I was game ready when I came to Texas, and it showed my freshman year winning the Holiday Bowl defensive MVP my first year at the University of Texas. And again, I'm proud to be a Waco Highline. I'm proud to be from Waco. I'm proud to be from my city, and it's still some real moments, still pinching myself.
How much does football help with life adversity? Because you're going to face adversity on the football field.
Yeah, absolutely. Football is a best example of how life works, right? It's never perfect, but you can still dominate. Things happen where you have to figure it out. Yeah. And football is a figure it out mentality. And in life, things happen up or down. You can't let what happens to you, what adversity you go through, deter or I would say lose your confidence. You can't lose your confidence at the end of the day when something bad happens. You got to believe in yourself and be able to do better.
How much back and forth has there been between you and Reggie Bush?
Oh, man. You know what? I didn't get a chance to play against Reggie. I wish I did because I was in the NFL when they actually played the national championship. Right. But I played against him in the NFL. Yeah. I see him all the time. Great guy, great smile. He's always smiling. But I'm like, man, I would have knocked you out back in the day. But he's a guy that he put college football on another level, man. I mean, like a Jordan, that's Reggie Bush. And to be up there, sitting by him, listening to his stories, and being able to be amongst that small circle of great people, it's a blessing.
Final question for you, and because I've been around in Central Texas when you were putting on for the community and putting on for the city, what did that mean for you to go back and give back to the community?
Oh, man, it means a lot. The platform that we have, it's about serving. It's about giving back. Because we influence others, God's blessed us with financially, He's blessed us with the right resources to give back. And my mom always told me, if you're a blessing, you got to be a blessing to others, and no different when it comes to being from Waco and being able to pour back into my city.
Well, congratulations, well deserved.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hey,
thank you, Keon Myers, and also Derek Johnson, who's joined this show many, many times. Interesting, during that interview, Paxton went no-show. He just disappeared.
Yeah, well, what if he actually had to do something and then he missed it?
I think he was possibly doing something. I think he was like just salivating.
Yeah.
over Derek Johnson in the interview. Some of you in the chat room are dirty-minded. It's not funny what you were saying about him. I never once was suggesting what some of you said in the chat.
Yeah. We have Pete Nakos coming up.
Pete Nakos, what are you trying to change the subject?
I don't.
By the way, we did not get to a super chat, Paul, yesterday. You're in charge of making sure we do them.
Mm-hmm.
DK, $10, thank you. This whole situation is a shame because instead of talking about the great matchups we have in the semifinals, we're talking about everything surrounding it. I couldn't agree more.
Yes, and it could have very well been avoided.
There would have been still some flare-ups.
Yeah, but
I think most people would
here's
realize,
the other thing.
Yeah.
If you're the college football playoff committee and if you're trying to also grade this on public relations, which clearly they were, on who's going to be, where's the outrage going to be, there's no outrage for Alabama. None.
Oh, I like Saban.
No, but yes, you like Saban, but outside of their actual fan base, look, if you found out that Elon Musk lost $1 billion, are you going to feel bad for Elon Musk? Not really. He's got 70 billion more.
Yeah, but that's a shot. That hurts him.
Yeah, look, he's paid paid $41 billion for Twitter on a dare. Nobody's going to feel bad.
Do you remember when Florida State played for the national title in 1993?
Yes, I do.
They beat Nebraska.
Yes.
Bentley, was he the kicker?
Scott Bentley, yes.
Kicked the field goal 30-something yarder. There was a controversial call, and then there was a late hit. And that's fine. I'm still not sore from it because it was a great game, and I never expected Nebraska to beat Charlie Ward and Florida State. What was their record that year?
They were 11-1.
Who'd they lose to?
They lost to Notre Dame, who then lost to Boston College the very next week.
And there was a little bit of controversy about if they should have been the one in the national. West Virginia went undefeated that year.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I got a West Virginia fan sent that to me. There's been a couple of different times.
Florida State benefited. The BCS computers did them a favor in 2000, if you remember.
They did.
Florida State lost to Miami.
Yes.
And in wide right 3, my most horrible personal experience at a sports venue, at the Orange Bowl there, they lost that game. But Miami had lost as well during the year, and the BCS computers spit out and this is what pushed Miami to join the ACC because they were in the Big East then. The BCS computers spit out that Florida State's record was better than Miami's, and
Yes.
It didn't matter because Oklahoma won the thing anyway. But
so it's not as if they haven't benefited from maybe some controversy.
No,
that doesn't take away what people may think about yesterday, because I thought that they should be in the 4-2. I just don't really know how.
But this is a different level of controversy in that before it was voters all over the country voting for something, like the AP, coaches, all those things.
In 93 it was. In 2000.
No, but in 2000, then you've got this computer doing it.
Like the Oklahoma, Texas in 08.
Which some of those factors were the votes in the polls and the other things.
Yes, they were.
So there were all these other factors that went into that. And then now we've boiled it down to people in a room that have some directives that they can't avoid, apparently. And that's where this one, all those other things are certainly controversial. And certainly everybody has a beef with that. But when you come down to, you're supposed to what they say, the computer never said anything. That's why I think college football loved it. The computer,
you could argue with a computer, but you were not going to get an argument back.
Well, the computer,
but it's not like somebody brought them fair. West Virginia was undefeated in 2000, whatever, and didn't get in. Mm-hmm. But we also, and I know we have Pete Nakos, we also have this nugget that we're going to get to about an Oklahoma State, Iowa State game about a decade ago that really maybe set up what was a great run already for the SEC into what was a decade-plus long run. And we're going to have that for you later in the show. And the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award, we'll show you the finalists later on. I voted for that earlier today. Oh, it's great to see Wet Blanket in the chat room today. Wet Blanket, welcome back. I have not seen Stan. When we come back, we'll hear from Pete Nakos from On3 Sports, and this is 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Aaron, it's premium grade East Texas beef, and you're located just outside of Tyler. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, the kind of beef that people want. And then also your label is what catches people's attention as well.
Yes, we have a all-natural, pasture-raised Wagyu beef. It's a USDA label. That means our cattle never spend any time in the feed yard. They go straight from the pasture to the day of harvest, and we oversee the whole process from the beginning of the genetic choices when we make these matings to the time the calves are born, to the feed choices, all the way through when the animals are harvested. So we oversee the whole thing as a family, and we just believe, life's too short to eat average beef. So we offer people a chance to step up their game and try Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Well, Catalina, getting to Pete Nakos, we're running about 5 minutes behind. And by the way, Wet Blanket, I was respectful to you and not comparing you to somebody else we have not seen from or heard from since late last week. Pete Nakos on 3 Sports, again with us on 365 Sports. We've had Pete on before. NIL, the transfer portal, the floodgates are open. Pete, 5,000, I guess, football or athletes are in the portal, and 1,000 plus in football. And everything supply and demand when it comes to money, right? And so what is the supply and demand this year compared to last year for the most part when it comes to the transfer portal and also NIL?
There's a lot of demand. I'm not sure about the supply. Things are getting interesting. As you guys have seen it feels like it's been 10 days, but it's been like 24 hours. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the transfer portal. There's a major need for quarterbacks right now. But I think the other thing schools are really running into right now, too, and I'm sure you guys would agree, there's a reason why some of these guys are still available and they're not in the NFL. And I think some schools are grappling with the market. And some quarterbacks are great. Some quarterbacks need work. And at the same time, I think that it is $1 million marketplace right now because there are some bidding wars where schools need to get these quarterbacks because they don't have any other options on their roster right now.
So Cam Ward is your number one player in the portal. You've got him ranked. Your NIL and help people walk through this at least a little bit. Your NIL value for him is $629,000, but he'll probably get more than that where he goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, just from my understanding, I think that he will definitely get more than that. But I'm not going to name a specific number, but I mean, Cam Ward is definitely arguably one of the top quarterbacks, and we have him ranked as number one, and I think his stats and background kind of back that up.
When Matt Rule about 3 to 5 days ago mentioned the quarterback NIL derby, were his numbers close to being right, or they are spot on from $1 million to $1.5 million or so, and maybe $2 million?
Could you repeat that?
Matt Rule from Nebraska made a comment about a week ago or so about the quarterback. If you want a quarterback, it's going to cost you $1 million or $1.5 million. And again, it depends on who you get: a Cam Ward, DJ Ugalele, whoever it might be. Was he pretty close to being correct?
Yeah, I think he's spot on. Actually, I think $2 million is definitely like the high. Like that is like an NFL ready quarterback. Now, I think the 1 to 1.5, I think that definitely is more the wheelhouse for a lot of these collectives and things like that. $2 million is a little jaw dropping, to be honest with you. But I've heard of a couple instances where we could be seeing that in the transfer portal this year.
Pete, what do you think? Where do you think this is headed with the? I know you heard about the proposal from Charlie Baker in schools with being able to directly do this. Where do you think this is headed on that regard?
Man, it's been quite the day. It sounds like Charlie Baker, right? You released that letter, basically bringing up the idea of a new kind of, I guess, top tier college football. Where's this all headed? I think time will tell, guys. I think Charlie Baker's really forward thinking. I think we have to give kudos to him. He's definitely trying to make the NCAA something it hasn't been for a long time. But I mean, it's antiquated. It's going to take some time. Props to President Baker for coming out with something really forward thinking. But this is not going to happen overnight. There's a lot of court cases right now about employment, revenue sharing. How does this all shake out? I think today was a step toward the NCAA trying to embrace what is going to happen because of the courts. What the final product is, I don't think we really know.
Pete, I know you're in the middle of writing a story, and right now, my God, you could write one about every other minute because of the portal wide open, which also affects NIL and vice versa. Is Walter Nolan, we saw the note that he's entering the portal, but I saw a note from somebody who covers A&M that he hasn't yet actually entered the portal. What would his value be in Europe? A non-quarterback like that, a great player, great talent, what would his value be?
I'm not going to give you a specific dollar figure, but I would probably tell you 7 figures. I mean, I was talking about this last night with my colleague, Andy Staples. I know you guys know Andy.
Yep.
Right, like when you think of football players, right, even Alabama, Washington, Michigan, like the reason why those teams are good isn't, I mean, they have some really great skill players, but it's the trenches, right? You think about that Michigan offensive line. You think about the front seven of Alabama. Like having great players in the trenches, that's the difference between being like probably a fringe top 15 team and like legitimately competing for a national title. So yeah, and Walter Nolan's the best at his position, and he could transform a defensive line. So yeah, I think he's definitely worth the value.
What school has used the transfer portal the best?
Oh, guys. I don't know if we're ready there. I think there's a Louisville has really impressed me. I think they're really making some waves. I think Florida State is ready to embrace it. Oregon is definitely not holding back. But yeah, I think give me till Thursday. I think we're going to see some commitments fall in the next 3 to 5 days, and I think that's when we'll really have the best idea because you guys know, right? Trying to report everything, trying to track down the latest on all the top names. There's definitely some that will slip through the cracks and then just suddenly commit to a couple schools.
Are you now what is equivalent of an air traffic controller?
Ooh, Well, in what sense?
Like, there's always a plane coming in. There's always one on the runway. There's always one landing. There's also none on the tarmac. I mean, literally, I'm trying to think of, other than a traffic cop, what you do and others who follow it. It's really crazy. The NFL, it's pretty simple. You can just kind of, there's contracts that keep guys from doing it. In college football right now, it really can be completely wide open.
I completely agree. And I was talking to one of my peers about this, like, complete props to what Adam Schefter does. And I mean, that's like a dream for me. Maybe one day. I'm not there yet, but like, at least like there's contracts that are in the public open. You know what I mean? Yep. Like that. It's so hard to track down the legitimate value and where a kid's going to go, and things like that. And yeah, I would say air traffic control. But you know what? That's the fun part too. Like, I truly love my job. And this time of year is wacky, sure, but I mean, it's where all the action happens. You want to be part of it, and I'm happy I get to report on it.
Pete, do you think that the calendar in college football right now makes no sense? Like, there's like the amount of things that they're having to do, like prepare for a bowl game, recruit their own roster, recruit their transfer portal, sign high school players. That doesn't seem to be a reasonable amount of things to let human beings do all at once.
Yeah. I don't think – I mean, you guys probably have a greater appreciation for bowl games than I do, right? I'm young. I'm 27 in the sense of, like, I just constantly think about the college football playoff these days. But, like, bowl games used to mean something, and bowl games mean utterly nothing now, right? I mean, how can you look anyone in the face and say, man, I can't wait to get ready for, I don't know, the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl now? Ohio State's going to play Missouri later this month in Arlington, and they're not going to have their starting quarterback because the portal opened on December 4th, right? I mean, the calendar is just so messed up right now, guys.
I know. Pete, I know you got a lot on your plate. We appreciate coming on with us. We appreciate your time. Good luck following the crazy, and you're doing a good job of it. Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much,
Pete
guys.
Nakos, again with us from on3sports.com. We've had Bruce Feldman, Tim Brando around the corner. Garrett, I think I told you this is going to be by phone. We also, normally Craig would have off the radar here on some alternate stories outside of some of them would be ratings, etc. But I've got a couple we could add to the mix. We'll do that. Paul's top 5 in about an hour. There is one thing I want to get to in the next segment. The Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year finalist, the Nagurski Trophy winner, the assistant coach Frank Broyles Award winner, which makes so much sense that I don't even know why they had the vote. And then on top of that, a game in the Big 12 that may have created some of the chaos we have with why the Big 12 went so long without a team that not got in the playoffs because Oklahoma did a handful of times, Texas in 2009 and now again. But it's kind of neat. Somebody sent that. I guess UC Realist sent that to me on the chat or in an email to me. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. Jack Emery Levi. Craig should be back with us tomorrow. Chip Brown, Softy Mahler from KJR in Seattle tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. Back in a moment. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels. Oh, I thought we had Richard Carr, which is another dealership and a good one, too. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. I love it when I get text messages from Ted Teague, CEO and general manager at Alan Samuels. I spoke with Lexi Gardner, who helps with a lot of what they do when it comes to marketing. Man, they just had November, and you know what they did? They just discussed what they have when it comes to Ram trucks or Jeep vehicles, SUVs, and more. They had very little of whatever percent off MSRP. They had very little when it comes to whatever the incentives and discounts might be from what is up in Detroit or at the main brand headquarters, because they just wanted to discuss the amenities and how really nice their cars are. They have pre-owned cars in their lot. That's where I bought mine back in 2020, and it has been fantastic. A peace of mind knowing, because I had a Tahoe that had over 450,000 miles on it, and man, that thing at any moment might not just start. In fact, it didn't on a few occasions. So I bought a pre-owned car. AJ was my sales rep, handled the situation. He was showing me others, and then I looked off in the distance. Man, I like that front grille. What is that? And I ended up getting a Ford Explorer, and I love it. Love every second of it that I've had it as well. And then also, They have cars with SUVs, these Wagoneers, Jeep Wagoneers. These are some alphas. I was going to say these are some dudes, but they're alphas, like big boy SUVs. We understand what Ram trucks, all the honors and the awards they've done over the years, whether it's a dually, whether it's a four-door crew cab or whatever. They have all the different particular, and pickup trucks now are no different than a luxury SUV on the inside. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, I want your Homer ears, eyes, brain, blood. If you're at home or wherever you are wearing a jersey of any of these coaches, take it off and understand the stories behind. These are the finalists for the Football Writers Association of America Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award. I want you to think before you look at, for example, I'll be honest, Steve Sarkisian absolutely deserves to be on this list. He didn't win Big 12 Coach of the Year, and then Texas beat the hell out of Gundy and Oklahoma State. That doesn't mean whoever voted for that was wrong, although some of you thought it was. But he's on here. He deserves to be on here. He has changed who they are and what people think of them. But then think about David Braun at Northwestern and what he took over when Pat Fitzgerald was fired in the spring. He led him to a bowl game. Chadwell, what he's done again, this time at Liberty. Kalen DeBoer, He's 24-2 or something like that in
Yeah.
a couple of years at Washington, and they were somewhat of a mess. Eli Drinkwitz, he's had a hell of a year. Missouri's been one of the fun stories at 10-2. Jed Fish, man, in no way anyone thought they were going to be a bowl team. No way. 9-3. Rhett Lashley, we had him on yesterday from SMU, the run they've been on. Chuck Martin, Miami of Ohio, which is like the cradle of great coaches in America. Mike Norvell, Florida State, 13-0. Barry Odom, where's Phil Vinzer? He's been angry with us. We don't talk enough about UNLV or something. 9-4. Saban. You go, oh, come on. He's got all the great players.
This was his best
Maybe
coaching
his best coaching job ever.
Because the portal affected them in a way that I think people can see. Look, you can see the way that Alabama plays. Go back and watch Alabama last year, Alabama the year before. This Alabama team does things that they didn't do, and I'm not saying in a good way. Like they're sloppy in a way that I know that
I think it all started when they played at Texas last year in Austin when they had all of these 5-yard penalties left and right, lining up off sides.
All these things that they're doing, and look, the portal, the draft, it affects even guys like Nick Saban. Now, when you have a little bit more of a, his fall is not as far, right? Like, when he hits the ground, there's a nice cushion there. So, but to be able to do this, especially given how you benched your quarterback who is playing really well and went in and played in a terrible in the rain at South Florida and barely got out of there with your life, playing different quarterbacks who all played terribly. And then for that to turn around and for you to find a way each and every week, they weren't blowing a lot of people out either. This wasn't classic Alabama wins by 30 points. They weren't blowing a lot of people out. There were dicey moments. So, yeah, it's his best coaching job. I mean, I say that, and I'm mad at him for existing right now, but it's not his fault. Like, it's just how it is. But yeah, absolutely he deserves to be on this list.
All right, so, Paul's already gone to bat. Doesn't mean he would vote for Saban. Sarkisian, we mentioned him at the top, 12-1. John Sumrall. Paul has him in some of his top 5 coaching searches from 11-2 at Troy. So all of those stories, and I know some of you cannot take off your rose-colored Homer glasses. I voted Pro Football Writers Association. Paul's a member of that too. The Football Writers Association of America. You look at those names, and one's going to win. It's deeper than maybe I could ever remember. There's always 3 or 4 on the list that are good, deserved it, whatever. Hold on. I went to the chat room. Oh, my God. Shocking. Paxton said Sarkisian. Good God.
Yeah.
But Roy Melton, a Texas Tech Red Raider, said Sarkisian. 5-7 to college football playoff in 3 years. No Harbaugh. My pick is Jed Fish from Scotty B.
Why is it Harbaugh on the list? He only coached 6 games this year.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I know Roger Dodger's kidding there, but
yeah. Let's see. Roger Dodger, can you be coach of the year with a worse team than the year before? Who is that?
Nick Saban.
What were they last year?
Well, I guess I don't know. Yeah, they're
not worse than they were.
They're better. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Jed Fish again. DeBoer, I think, from Roger the Dodger. Sumrall, back-to-back 10-plus win seasons at Troy. Joe Long, people were joking about UNLV 9-4, not bad. Fish. Roger, Bama wasn't worse than they were last year. Adam Vulture, trying to get NIL for Paul Catalina money, said Mike Norvell.
Look, I mean, if you want to put like Mike Norvell and Sark are in the same boat, right? In that from not in a bowl 3 years ago to, I mean, Sark's in the CFP, Mike Norvell isn't. We know why, but they're in the same boat. I mean, like if you weren't to grade it on those qualifications, yeah, I think you're right. But Mike Norvell will be one of my top picks here. I mean, because he did such a great job. I'm leaning towards either Sark or DeBoer, but how
can anyone know if you had to pick? Would David Braun be on your first five?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because see, that's a different story. He took over a team that was in shambles, transfer portal
in May.
In May. Yeah. I think you could argue for everybody on this list and have a very good argument. You could vote for whoever's on this list and not blink and not feel bad about it.
He made a 6-game swing with them. They were 1-11 a year ago. They were 1-11.
No, I know. Their one win was in Dublin. Dublin, England, Ireland against, of course, Nebraska.
Yeah, 1-11. They were 1-11. But look, Pat Fitzgerald. Most places would fire a coach at 1-11 like that. You know, unless it's their first year. But most coaches would fire a 20-year head coach at 1-11 like that, and they didn't. And then it took the scandal to get that done, the hazing scandal. But, yeah, anybody on this list, I mean, Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri's been an absolute afterthought in the SEC for a very long time.
Played Georgia well last year.
Yeah.
We'll have Tim Brando in just a moment. Around the corner.
So, yeah.
Garrett, did you erase the quotes from the Big 12 source on realignment?
Yeah, I have to go back and grab it. Hang on.
Okay, well, not now.
Well, we got to get our Broyles Award.
We got to get our Broyles Award winner. We'll do that in the 5 o'clock hour at some point. Also, the Frank Broyles Award winner, Best Assistant Coach in America. If this wasn't unanimous, with all due respect to anybody else on that list, for Iowa won 10 games?
Yes.
Every game they won was because of Phil Parker and the defense.
Yes. No.
And any game they lost was not because of Phil Parker and the defense.
The only reason that Kirk Ferentz still has a job, I'll tell you right now, it's because of Phil Parker the last 2 years.
I agree.
That's the only reason that Kirk Ferentz, they have not done the Bobby Bowden, like the Bobby Bowden, like, hey, you know where it's good? The beach. That's what they did to Bobby.
Did you see Brian Ferentz go off? And he had a right to in that game against Michigan. He was upset about something. But, okay, so there's Phil Parker. The Nagurski Trophy, given to the best defensive player. And this young man, under the radar in many different ways. A lot of people don't even know about Watts, the kid from Notre Dame, the safety.
He's a good player.
He
will saw you in half.
I mean, absolutely a hell of a player. So he won the Nagurski Award, or Nagurski Trophy, excuse me. So there's that one. Have I missed anything? We did the Coach of the Year finalist, Assistant Coach of the Year, Broyles,
that was it.
And then that's it with what we have there.
And look, I voted in the Broyles Award. There were some really, really good coaches on the list. I mean, and you have to rank. They give you a first place, second place, third place on down, but of what they do. But I really wanted to just vote, like, not a knock on any of them because they all are deserving, but in a way of, one side of the ball is so clearly ahead of the other side of the ball. A lot of them, you're like, well, yeah, you're a good coach, but your other coach could also be on this list. They're not because they kind of flipped a coin.
Right.
Both sides of the ball are good. Let's see who that is. But with Phil Parker, it's like, no, this dude is doing all the heavy. Have you ever been on like a road trip with somebody and say we're gonna split up the driving, and then they sleep most of the time, and then you get there like an hour away. You're like, I'll get it now. You're like, well, why now?
Yeah, I know.
That's the Iowa offense.
All right, so when we come back, Tim Brando, oh boy, load up your Truth Serum needles and injections because that's coming. By the way, 365 Sports tonight at 10:30, presented by GXG. Your opportunity to support Baylor student athletes now and into the future. You can go for more information to BaylorBears.com/GXG. Also our presenting sponsor of 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight at 10:30 on the local CW. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in Waco. Used to be none just a few years ago. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. I'm looking online. You can order from what they have online. And online, they also will have code words or numbers, letters for you to get discounts on specific type items. You can call them up, they'll deliver. They deliver here. The Bell Mead store, one of the 5 in Waco, delivers here to where we are, about a mile west of McClain Stadium on MLK. They have the Pozzoli now, limited time, $5.99 each. You can go and order online. Use the code word Pozzoli, Pizzoli. $3 off large specialty pizzas. That's online. Hot honey, that's what you can pour on top of your pizza. Magnifico. Boneless wings, savory sauces, 10-piece, $7.99. Also, 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas, cheesy bread, and a 2-liter bottle of whatever soft drink you want. They have those, pizza bowls, cauliflower crust if you want it, e-cards, gift cards if you want for stocking stuffers. Fastest growing and 5th largest pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Don't miss out on the biggest deals of the year during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adventure, style, and comfort of the new 2023 Jeep lineup. Shop our great selections in-store or online today and start your Jeep adventure.
Aaron Duvall, owner, Texas Beef House. Aaron, it's premium grade East Texas beef, and you're located just outside of Tyler. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, the kind of beef that people want. And then also your label is what catches people's attention as well.
Yes, we have a all-natural, pasture-raised Wagyu beef. It's a USDA label. That means our cattle never spend any time in the feed yard. They go straight from the pasture to the day of harvest, and we oversee the whole process from the beginning of the genetic choices when we make these matings to the time the calves are born, to the feed choices, all the way through when the animals are harvested. So we oversee the whole thing as a family, and we just believe, life's too short to eat average beef. So we offer people a chance to step up their game and try Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Again, Craig is out, most likely back with us tomorrow, a little bit under the weather, wishing him the best, get some sleep, lots of liquids. Tim Brando, who has been running around with his head cut off today, running errands, and the voice of reason, Truth Serum, about to come full throttle here on 365 Sports. How's your day?
Good. I got that holiday feeling, Smoke. I got that. So, the holiday duty and holiday feeling. And I'm sorry I couldn't join you via Zoom, but this will have to do for today. Hope you guys are well.
We're doing well. Craig's a little bit under the weather. He'll be back. All right, so I'm just going to ask you one question. Paul Catalina, you may know this, is an FSU alum, not just a fan. but an alum. It's been a tough 3 days for him. Your thoughts about the politics, the Final Four, so to speak, and how it all went down, in your opinion, of the four?
Well, the major question that you get on all of these shows is, did the committee get it right? And it's like, this is the same question they ask every year. And it's not about the four teams that they got or the matchups for me. I mean, you can make, if you want, a legitimate argument that Alabama is a better matchup for Michigan, given the circumstances, than Florida State would be. But, the question ought to be, instead of did they get it right, the question ought to be, how did they go about doing this? Is that right? And it's never right. The committee is corrupt. The process is corrupt. It has been since the jump. And there was no way you're going to be able to fit a square peg in a round hole when this system was put in place after having two, and only after an embarrassment when they had LSU and Alabama in a BCS title game and a rematch after a game of the century was replayed. Only then did they finally go screaming and clawing and finally saying, we can't do this. And of course, what wound up happening after they went to four? Oh, they had Georgia and Alabama playing in the national title a couple of years as well. So, it's a flawed system, and it's corrupt to go along with it. There's no transparency. And now you have media manipulation through the most powerful conference in America, basically saying, we want to speak to the committee and we want the floor. And you're given a 30 to 45-minute infomercial on the sport's most popular pregame show all day on Saturday. This after Greg Sankey makes the rounds on Friday, hitting McAfee and everybody else to basically say, how dare you have this event without an SEC team in it? I mean, that was the narrative. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it. So would Alabama give Michigan a better game, perhaps even win the game, more so than perhaps Florida State? Well, given the circumstances and with Jordan Travis out, possibly, maybe even probably. Does that make what the process is right or correct or a process filled with integrity? Absolutely not. Integrity was lost. Florida State was, in fact, wronged, and they did everything that was asked of them. They even won games with a second-string quarterback and a third-string quarterback once Jordan Travis was out. This wasn't even a vintage Alabama team. It's an Alabama team that, without a prayer on 4th and 31, doesn't beat a mediocre to bad Hugh Freeze coach Auburn team. That is what it is. But as I mentioned, that media manipulation, which carried through not only through the game day show on Saturday, but through that farcical selection show, where it was just, I mean, here's the deal. It has to be Alabama, regardless. And the only person that speaks up on behalf of Florida State is Booger McFarland, who covers the NFL more than he does college football. That speaks to the problem. With one network, one narrative, and one powerful commissioner that, by God, was going to get what he wanted, and that was an SEC team in it. All I want is for the committee to be transparent. Look, I know Boo Corrigan very well. I mean, he is the son of Gene Corrigan, one of the most visionary men in intercollegiate athletics, former AD at Virginia, Notre Dame, and ACC commissioner. His younger brother, Kim, is a Emmy Award-winning producer at ESPN, does their NBA. He was a broadcast associate when I was hosting Game Day in 1987 and 88. He's a good man. But you know what? He didn't answer the question. The questions were, how did you get here? Well, we voted, but we did it 6, maybe 7 times, and it came back this way. And so that's, tell the truth. Just tell the truth. There were 2 options here, fellas. 2 options. If Georgia had beaten Alabama, the number 1 team in America would have been, without question, all right, Georgia. Then you would have had Michigan, then you would have had Washington, and then you would have had Florida State. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The moment Georgia lost that game to Alabama, the committee had made its commitment to the SEC. There was not going to be a college football playoff without an SEC team in it. Not after, all right, the long soliloquy and diatribe given by Commissioner Sankey, as I said, Friday, Saturday, all day, an infomercial. And that's that. So Alabama or Georgia were going to get in no matter what. And when Alabama beat Georgia, that really allowed Texas to get that other spot, because you could not take Alabama without also taking Texas because of the criteria of head-to-head. This garbage about Travis and about, it's part of the criteria. Yeah, we've known about that nebulous piece of garbage at the end of that since they put the thing together. All you have to do when you look at that paragraph is say that the code for that particular paragraph is, if there are any issues, any controversies, this committee will exercise this option to pick whoever we damn well please. And whoever we damn well please this time was going to be Alabama, okay? Not Florida State. Period. End of story. Just say it, Boo Corrigan. Just say it. And everybody else will cease and desist. But the lies and the non-answers that are always delivered, whether it's re-asking the question or it's some sort of serve up the home run pitch from Kirk Herbstreit for Boo to knock it out of the park. That's a little bit later on, they say, why Liberty instead of SMU, who beat Tulane? Mm-hmm. Boo Corrigan's answer is, well, they won every game. So it worked for Liberty, but it didn't work for Florida State, did it? It's situational ethics of a corrupt committee, of a corrupt process that's been in play since this damn thing was born, and nobody ever can go after anyone that's going to say otherwise and prove to me that I'm not accurate. And that's just it. It's been that way since it started. And it's time for some transparency. It's time for corruption to come to an end. And by the way, the bigger story on this is when we go to 12, they better come up with another better core values to how they come to 12. Or we're going to have this same damn thing happening with 9 and 3 teams trying to get spots 10, 11, and 12. So this may not go away. I mean, this could be a cause for alarm moving forward when we get to 12, because these these articles and criteria have got to change. And I know the champions will get in, and I understand the arguments that have been brought forth. Hey, the commissioner of the ACC, who did a very poor job, by the way, Greg Sankey is to be congratulated for the job that he did. He used his power to use the platform that ESPN gave him to get his team in. That's what the commissioner is supposed to do. Did I like it? No, I didn't like it. But he did what he had to do. The commissioner of the ACC did absolutely nothing. Now, why did Jim Phillips do nothing? Because he made a huge error, as did George Kliavkoff of the Pac-12, with Warren of the Big Ten, who's now in the NFL, by forming this alliance that voted against the expansion being this year. Okay? So, they dug their own graves to go along with it. They were inept, but the system is corrupt.
Tim, you mentioned transparency, and I know the NFL isn't the best example for everything, but the NFL has, when a game is over, the head official has to go into a room with a pool reporter and answer questions about the calls they made. College referees don't have to do that. There's no committee, so they don't have to answer to things on playoffs and all that, but you are right. There is zero transparency to the process other than platitudes and non-answers. And
non-answers.
And if you're if you're trying to prove that you're not controversial, you're not corrupt, or everything's on the up and up, then you should allow your committee members to talk to people and say, "Hey, I am Gene Taylor. I am, Jim Grobe. This is why I made this decision." But they're not doing that.
No, and they won't do that. Ever. Not as long as this is in place. And of course, they send the great soldier that is Reese Davis out all over the media to talk about the great integrity of the athletic director from the ACC, Boo Corrigan, saying today, don't you know he would have preferred an ACC team being in, but he's a man of integrity. Stop. Just wipe the syrup off my iPad with that crap, okay? I'm tired of hearing it, all right? And I don't need Herbie, going back on Twitter after he just got through telling us for, 2 hours why Alabama is the better choice, to talk about how sad he is for those poor kids at Florida State and for Mike Norvell, because, they did everything that was asked of them, but unfortunately, because TCU lost 65-7, and how about that? How about bringing that kind of crap up? We suddenly get amnesia about TCU beating Michigan to get into that game that they lost 65-7. The notion that you're going to compare Florida State to TCU's epic run last year and Cincinnati's as a group of 5 team is one of the most over-the-top, incorrect, historical narratives I've ever heard. Florida State's got one of the richest traditions in all of college football. Anyone wonder where Lee Corso was during the course of that selection show with all that going on? The Luke Sunshine Scooter of Florida State fame? Wonder how Lee felt about that. Well, we didn't find out because he wasn't out there. Okay, we never heard from the guy that's been around game day for such, since its beginning. Of course, wait a minute. Game day started in 1993, didn't it?
No, that's
that was just an illusion I had, right? We didn't do game day in 1987. Okay. Only when the mascots came out on the road did game day ever really exist. That's what they'll have you believe now.
Tim Brando with us, Fox Sports, right here on 365 Sports.
So, Tim, the other thing about this, I think that's kind of distressing is, so now, for Georgia and Florida State, they play in this Orange Bowl, which should be awesome if everything was equal, but you're not going to have a lot of players in this game for either side. It really means nothing other than to Florida State to try to go 14-0 and prove that they should have been in the thing to all the naysayers anyway. How do we fix all of this to where – because this Orange Bowl, and I feel bad for the people of the Orange Bowl, is not as cool as it would have been if it was Georgia and Florida State in a normal situation.
All right, well, let's get something straight here real quick to start, okay? How in the world could Georgia be ranked behind Florida State based on the committee's decision? How does that happen? Okay, how does Florida State, if it meant so much that Jordan Travis was hurt, how did they wind up being 4th, 5th, right around? How did they, and they're ahead of Georgia, who everyone was thinking was going to beat Alabama, was favored to beat Alabama? What a crock. No, they coerced themselves into looking this bad by ranking them as highly as they did until now. I mean, this smacks of 2014 when Ohio State and TCU dropped from 3rd to 6th. Okay, they did this to Florida State, and it was so very obvious. If they really were going to throw the Jordan Travis card out there and use that last piece of criteria, which is bogus, they should have started ranking them around 7th or 8th 3 weeks ago. What did they do without Travis? They found a way to win with a superior defense and a team that knew how to win other ways besides with their offense. Okay, and no, just actually say 15 minutes later, those guys out there saying, well, they've got a chance to prove the committee wrong if Florida State can go out and beat Georgia. Really? You're going to put that on those young men after you just did that to them? Did you not see the head coach with his head down? What is he going to tell those guys before that game? I mean, you just took an absolute sledgehammer to their head and to their heart. And now you're going to tell them, well, you're not going to go for the national title, but go get you some with Georgia and beat them, and then you can claim the committee's wrong. Like, that's going to matter. Particularly given exactly what you're talking about. These players now are going to do exactly what the committee told them to do, and they're going to look out for themselves and themselves only. And why shouldn't they? The grown-ups here are only looking out for themselves. You think the SEC was looking out for all the student-athletes when they were pontificating ad nauseum about how this event couldn't happen without an SEC team in it? I dare say not. We are living in the I'm going to go and get mine by God era of college football. Forget integrity. Power, control, and money win. Not winning every game. Not being 13-0. Whatever happened to 13-0 mattering? Remember how Bobby Bowden talked about that only undefeated team that he ever had? You know, it was great to win that national title the first time, but when he got that one that was undefeated, how much more did that one really mean? It meant a lot more. Going undefeated always means a lot more. But to those Florida State kids, it means zilch, zero, zippity-doo-dah.
Tim, in 2014, there was the TCU, Baylor, Ohio State, and Ohio State went on to win the national title. TCU was third and got jumped. In fact, they fell back to like 6. Baylor went to 5. Baylor had beaten TCU. You know the head-to-head. That's supposed to matter, and it did with Texas and Alabama, but it didn't really matter then. Bob Bowlesby said, not our bylaws, whatever. But you had that year, and there's been a couple of flare-ups, but then this year, are they lucky this has not happened earlier? Much earlier, more times?
Yeah, much earlier. Yeah. And we all knew that the chaos would ensue. Listen, the committee really didn't have a prayer. There was no way they could get it right the moment Alabama won that game. All right? The commitment had been made by too many of those individuals that we had to have an SEC team in. And Georgia's schedule was so pathetic that Georgia could not weasel its way in with, a strength of schedule of, hovering around 100 in the SEC. I mean, their non-conference was so bad that even an SEC schedule would not help it. Alabama did have a strength of schedule right around 55, knowing full well that Florida State's schedule, because the ACC did not offer the same kind of competition as the SEC, was going to be upwards around 90, 95 to 100. And so you just put the metrics up. And again, that's all part of this analytics, this FPI, all the little things that they can put up on a graphics machine to support whatever their mission statement is. And this year's mission statement was, we can't have this event without an SEC team in it. And that's what it is. So forget the fact that the ACC went 6-4 against the SEC. Forget that Florida State scheduled a game with an LSU team and one going away in the second half at a neutral site. Forget all of that. What mattered was Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and Alabama found a way to play poorly and win at South Florida, play poorly and win against Arkansas, play really poorly and win Auburn, and still get in. And why? Because they're frickin' Bama. That's why.
Tim,
you have to be, and I'm going to bring back the 3 words, fellas, pure playoff privilege. You have to be Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, USC. And those things can happen for you. You cannot be, even Florida State, with their storied tradition. They had been out of the limelight since 2013. So whatever luster they once had, that baby's gone. This was about matchups and the television aspect of those matchups and what they meant. You know what? I'm sure Kirk just wanted to do Alabama, Michigan. The Harbaugh story versus the Nick Saban story. Either one can win and ride off into Harbaugh can ride off to the NFL. Saban can say, I got my 8. I just bypassed Bear Bryant at Alabama with my 7th. And now I can, if I want to leave now and put some more Just for Men and makeup on like Brando, I can do television. And I'm good to go. That makes a hell of a lot more television sense than putting Florida State with a second-string quarterback up against Michigan. And you know what, fellas? I'm sorry. When the public believes that announcers have that much control, that's bad for our sport.
Yeah, somebody made this comment. Somebody made this comment. Sorry, Tim. Somebody made this comment earlier that instead of talking about the matchups of Texas, Washington, Alabama, Michigan, and there's been a little bit of that, but not much of it, all we've discussed was the process and the controversy.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, that's what they wanted. That's all that was there, and they didn't want to get into that. Did anybody want to talk about Florida State's defense? I mean, nobody wanted to talk about Florida State's defense. I mean, it was a joke. It just because, and here's why, fellas, because all week long on daytime cable, who's being discussed when college football comes up? Same teams. All right, same teams. It's no different than the NBA. Is anybody discussing an NBA team that's not named the Lakers or the Knicks or the Celtics or the 76ers? No. In college football today and in the embrace debate world, we want to discuss just the players and the teams we know something about. The ones we don't, we really don't care that much about. All right? And sadly, Florida State now falls into that category. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Believe me,
Florida
Tim,
State with national titles all over.
It stings.
Yeah.
It really stings when you find out what rooms in the country club you can't go into. But I also refuse to believe that you use Just for Men, Tim. I think. But do you think that this is, look, Jim Phillips, you mentioned that he did not campaign at all. And like the nice guy part of me says, well, I mean, why would he think he had to? They were going to be undefeated. Like they've never done that before. But the other part of me says like, well, watch what Sankey's doing and maybe learn something that he's.
Let me, it sounds like I'm being critical of Greg Sankey, and to some extent I am, because he used his power and the worldwide leader yielded to that power. But he did his job. I mean, he was out there fighting for his team. I think he probably thought, in fact, I'll tell you, watching the game day shows, I was getting ready to go do my basketball game at Wisconsin. Hell, I thought he was chatting it up for both teams to get in. I think he fully expected Georgia and Alabama to get in, to be perfectly honest with you. I really do. And there's nothing that, I mean, but Jim Phillips just was asleep at the switch. And part of the reason is he's had so many other things on his mind, like Florida State leaving, like Miami leaving, and, oh, by the way, making a mistake that he made in joining up with Warren and Kliavkoff with that stupid alliance idea and voting against the expansion a couple of years ago at the Final Four. It was a big mistake, and it was something that Dan Wetzel brought up in his column, and I absolutely agree with it. A lot of mistakes were made by these other leaders. And Jim Phillips, who I had great respect for at Northwestern, frankly, I thought he would get the Big Ten commissioner's job rather than Warren before Tony Petitti replaced Warren and he went to the NFL. But, he's not done a very good job for his constituency with the ACC. That's clear at this stage. And what's left for them moving forward? I think he's going to be doing a catch-up, trying to hold on to Virginia and North Carolina, keeping them from going to the Big Ten, and Clemson, Florida State, and Miami from going to the SEC. Fellas, we may be a couple of years at best of the ACC still being in existence.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you that because there's the school thought like it was a 12-team playoff. You should stay where you are, money notwithstanding, and get in the playoff, and that'll increase your money, blah, blah, blah. But there's also we did everything we could possibly have done to get in the playoff and still didn't get in, so.
Yeah. Anybody that was questioning whether Florida State was overstepping by doing what they were doing in the offseason, all they need to do is throw up this past weekend as Exhibit A.
Yep.
They absolutely had to be doing what they were doing. And if you didn't get it before, you by God ought to get it now.
Tim, what was the favorite store you went into today, and which is the one you did not think you had to go into, but you did?
All right, I was able to fight off Dollar General, but I couldn't fight off Target. I couldn't fight off Target. I mean, Dollar General. Dollar General, I'll put my foot down there. But Target, okay, stocking stuffers, Target is awesome for stocking stuffers.
It is. Don't get caught in like Costco or places like that. You'll never come home. You'll never leave. You'll never.
You know what? We don't have a Costco here. And it's probably a good thing because if we did, I'd be bankrupt.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's Mac Rhodes' favorite place to shop.
I love Costco. Tim, $1.50 hot dog. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, my daughter's got one. She lives in Madison, Mississippi, And if the 7-year-old and the 2.5-year-old get a little bit bored, it's just get the shopping cart and go to Costco and look. Just look.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, thank you for your time. We will have you on again. We hope soon. Tell Terry thank you for giving you up for about 30 minutes. Go fight the crowds and the lines, and thank you so much for your truth serum. The chat room just loves it when you're on the show. But the two most popular truth serum, Phil Bennett, Tim Brando, on pretty much anything college football. We appreciate your time.
God bless you guys, and Merry Christmas.
Tim Brando with us, 365 Sports. We appreciate him.
I mean, all right,
I'm going to get into Florida State and the conspiracy. Two ways, but I want to look at it different ways, and I don't know if anyone's going to look at the other way I'm going to look at it, which is normal. Do you think Florida State in any way, shape, or form was hurt because of the brouhaha that they created, because they were kind of the leader when it comes to wanting to say, we want to leave the ACC?
Well, I mean,
you think Boo Corrigan was full throttle for Florida State?
Okay, that's a good
They're one of the schools that was very much like in the crosshairs.
But NC State was also with them until they weren't.
Well, but they weren't. At the end,
and they weren't at the end.
All right, that's one question.
And also, though, did Jim Phillips not? I mean, and maybe it wasn't a conscious decision.
Was Jim Phillips in a Bob Bowlesby position?
What?
But he wasn't fighting for two schools in his own conference, though.
He wasn't even fighting for one.
He wasn't even fighting for his conference. So we don't know that.
And look, I don't know. Like I said to Tim, there's two schools of thought that I have, like the angel and devil on the shoulder, right? So the angel is like, well, why in the hell would he ever think he had to campaign for a 13-0 Power 5 team?
That's true.
But if I was Jim Phillips and Friday night I'm watching the Pac-12 championship, and I've got Greg Sankey on my TV
just
at a place
politicking.
He shouldn't even be because he has nothing to do with that. I'm going,
hey, I'm texting the producer at ESPN.
I'm calling him right now and be like, hey,
can I come on for a phoner?
Can I come on for a phoner? Because, and look, here's the other thing I would have done, and he didn't catch this either. When Bill Hancock said 4 best and not 4 most deserving, I'd have been like, hey, Bill, don't think I don't know who you're talking about here.
No,
I would have been on that. So he was asleep at the wheel on this. Now, sometimes you maybe do things subconsciously because Florida State made your life kind of hellish in the summer with what they were doing. But you're not able to offer them any answers, and then here they are. Yeah, here's the thing I think that's kind of scary from Florida State and Clemson and Miami and anybody who may want to leave the ACC. It may not be outside of revenue the best idea, right? We don't know if it's a great idea that Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. They'll probably figure it out, but most teams that go into conferences, it doesn't really wind up well for them. In fact, we talked about months ago, the only one I can think of that went into the conference and stayed the same, I mean, TCU is now kind of an outlier, but that stayed the same was A&M. A&M made a move, made more money, and they're exactly who they were in the Big 12 as they are in the SEC.
Which was always an underachieving. They've had some moments. But Missouri's kind of turned that corner.
But, and so they had a good season this year.
Arkansas down, Nebraska down, Colorado down.
TCU has been like this. They fit in the Big 12. It works for them, but
and too many other schools are brand new to it this year.
But there's not a lot of good track record of I went in this conference and won a title, right? Yeah. So, if there was any people who are holding out, going well, maybe let's see what the ACC can do.
Utah's probably won this better than they were.
Yes, Utah.
Before. Yeah.
Utah is. Yeah. But if there's anybody that was well, let's see what happens with the ACC, and let's not just jump into the SEC to do it, that might be the best idea. That's gone. That's gone. So, any support for
all 4 teams in the playoff are going to be a part of the SEC and Big Ten next year. Yeah.
So, any support for the AC, Florida State going hey, this is the conference that we've always been in, because they weren't in a conference before. They were an independent forever until the 90s. And so, for any support they had for staying in that conference, right or wrong, is now probably gone because of this. Because the people like Drew Rutherford, who's on the board, former quarterback, that is pushing the got to get out of the conference, all he has to do now is go, see?
Yep.
See?
Yep. Texas wanted to leave the Big 12, but guess what? If they do win it and they are a member of the Big 12, that you can chant SEC all you want, but you're kind of in it for at least another, until sometime in June. And believe me, the Big 12 could use that. And then I had somebody text me, or somebody copied me, tagged me about, but Oklahoma State's going to be in it next year. Texas will be gone. And what is that? Someone will somehow rise to the top, whether it's the incoming four, one of the incoming four or two. Somebody will eventually, be more the alpha. But there is not a blue blood. Not now. Not in June. You got to kind of find a way. And we've learned now to become a blue blood, it means decades of success. Miami, it took, even though they had a great run. We know Florida State had a great run, and I thought they were a blue blood, but as you said, Paul, you're allowed in the front entrance of Augusta National. You can play the front 9, but you can't play the back 9. Or you can play the 18 holes, but you're not allowed to run and have dinner in the champions room.
Yeah,
Even if you have 3 national, three?
Yeah, 3.
And
look, I know they're not Alabama, but they have as many as Texas does.
Wait a minute. Texas in 63.
Or they have one
69 and 70.
So they have 4.
And
they have one
05.
less. They have one less, but way more appearances in that thing.
Yeah,
way more. And they've got more than Washington. So, they've won a lot more than Michigan recently.
Washington won it in 90. Steve Empman and that group. Don James was the head coach. And so they won it in 90. Michigan, of course, 97 was their last. Split it with Nebraska. And then before that, my God. I saw a note about Michigan. I'm glad. And this is not.
Did you?
They're the first or second team in Big Ten history, which is 120-something years long, to win 3 consecutive Big Ten championships. You would have thought Ohio State or Michigan or others back in the day, Minnesota would have done that, but it was something like they're 3 in a row. 3 in a row without a tie. Yeah. Like it's happened maybe once or twice in Big Ten history.
And we got to take a break and get to John McClain in a second. But I do think did you read Heather Dinish's column about she talked to some committee members?
I saw that.
Okay, and they mentioned that. We were watching Florida State and we're like, oh, well, this offense is just really bad. Did any of them go, hey, is Rodemaker going to play again or what's going on? And I'm starting to think that Rodemaker being out there for warm-ups, dressed, was to let the committee know, hey,
I'm okay.
He's all right. He just can't play today.
Because of a concussion that 3 weeks from now won't be a problem.
He's okay. Yeah. And especially if you go back and watch the Florida game. I know it wasn't great offensive performance, but they scored 3 touchdowns. So
do I need to buy you 2 bottles of Balcones this year for Christmas?
Probably. I don't know.
All right, we got to go.
Yeah.
Jeff Grimes, he is among the candidates to fulfill. It looked like he could be headed back to BYU. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? An article in the Deseret News. Grimes up for one of 2 vacant positions on the offensive coaching staff, the former Baylor offensive coordinator. And there's going to be good news for Baylor when it comes to filling out their staff under Dave Aranda, but offensive coordinator Jake Spavital, that I think is going to be really, really good news when that becomes official. And this is John McClain. It's next, 365 Sports. Don Chimador and Coffee Beans. I went there today. Cheyenne was there today. I am going down to go see my 3 brothers. Robert, of course, has been battling, and I've shared his story, some prostate cancer, and it's been tough for the last 4 or 5 years. And there's some days it's not easy. And in some days, man, when I talk to him, my God, get better. I'm going down to see them again. And I remember the first time I went there. I went in June. That's where I usually go once a year. Now this is my 3rd time. So I went in June, and I took down a packet called Bad Days from Don Chimador and Coffee Beans. Listen, they've got the 48-foot walk-in humidor, Macanudo, Ashton, Cohiba, Padron, my favorite brand, Rocky Patel. They have all the cigars you want. They have the accessories from a humidor, cutter, torch lighters, what you need. They have CBD products called Vita Dreams. You could have a gummy at night to help you restfully fall asleep and not toss and turn. But they have a gummy for bad days. It's called Bad Days. And I remember they suggested it to me to give to my brother Robert, who has some chronic pain because of what he's dealing with. And he took one of those the first time I went down in June, and he said it really, really helped him out. And now I've had other people ask me about them. So bought some packets of Bad Days. I'm going to take it down to Florida to give to my brother Robert for him to use at his convenience when he wants to. If you have chronic pain, Don Chimodor and coffee beans, yes, fresh coffee beans. They have the cigars, but they have Bad Days. Tell them I sent you. THC product just off of Richland Drive in Valley Mills in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McClain. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at sportsradio610.com.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, 610 in Houston, and a great friend of our show. We appreciate his time whenever we can get it, mostly on Tuesdays about this time. John, thank you. Man, you look up, and the Texans, we bring this up and what they've done, the coach, and what, obviously, C.J. Stroud. I hate the injury on Dell, but is this like Coach of the Year type stuff for him?
David, everybody had the Texans as the second worst team in the league to Arizona going into the season. They won 7 games the last 2 years. They're 7-5. Their last 8 games have been decided by 7 or fewer points. And their last 8 games have also been decided in the last 30 seconds, including games that were 3 points, 4 points, and seconds. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and 0 seconds in 4 of those 8 games. So they're winning close games. They've overcome injuries. Even though Tank Dell was a great, exciting rookie, they're still loaded with receivers and tight ends.
John, DeMeco Ryan seems to be, personality-wise, exactly what they needed. What is he different? I mean, obviously he's different than Bill O'Brien, but what has he been different than the last few coaches?
The last one was Lovie Smith. Lovie was very laid back, and DeMeco's very animated. He's very demonstrative. He's just a good speaker. He's a better talker than he was when he played. I covered every game he played, and I told him, how come you weren't this good when you played? He said, I've learned a lot. And when he gave his first news conference here, there were a lot of former players, current players, and boy, all of them wanted to go out and put on some pads and hit right then because he was so emotional about coming home to Houston and what he hoped to do. He didn't predict anything other than they'd play hard and be better. And boy, it helps when your quarterback is on pace to become the first rookie to lead the NFL in yards passing. And David, you would have covered this guy, Davey O'Brien, in 1930.
I was a senior in college during the.
Yeah, was he a good interview?
No, he was very well spoken and such a gentleman, such a heck of an. Sammy Ball was good too. Doak Walker was good too.
Man. 1930. Think about that. Yeah. With all the quarterbacks who've been in the NFL, you'd think one of them would have been productive enough to lead the league in yards, and he may not end up leading the league, but right now he's number one, and he's on a pace for a little over 5,000. And even though he's lost Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz has missed some games, he's been great, not just as a receiver, but also as a blocker. Because if you don't block here and you're a receiver, tight end, and running back, your butt's on the bench. And so Noah Brown from the Cowboys, C.J. Stroud, and their play caller, Bobby Slowick, have done a tremendous job of helping develop receivers.
Hey, Jacksonville, did they dodge a bullet last night with Trevor Lawrence?
Well, it looks like they did. They lost the game because Jake Browning looked like Joe Burrow, threw for more yards last night than he had in his entire career. Cincinnati's now 6-6 and in a wild card race. And when Trevor Lawrence got hurt, his reaction made you think he's done for the year. I thought it was his Achilles, his ACL, he broken his ankle. And what was so weird, and so many people mentioned this on social media, he had to walk to the locker room with the help of two people at a snail's pace, and you wonder, do they not have golf carts in northern Florida?
Well, there are no golf courses in Florida, John, so they would not have.
No, not at all.
Yeah, they would not have golf carts.
Just borrow one from TPC. It's right down the road.
Yeah.
John, the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, they're on fire right now. Now, they're about to jump into the absolute teeth of their schedule with the Eagles, Dolphins, Lions, Bills, all coming up here in the next 4 weeks. But is this Cowboys team any different to you than the others that we've seen people get excited about and then go to the playoffs and then lose to a team that's better run than them?
That was a great performance, but I've told you guys before, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, Mike McCarthy makes some mistakes in play calling, clock management, game management, and that game was a great example. At the end, they should have run the ball and forced a timeout. Instead, they tried to throw a pass in the end zone, incomplete. They could have lost it. Had they lost it, he would have got roasted for that call. And so I don't trust them in those situations in close games. So they need to win decisively. I think they're going to beat Philadelphia. That'll be 2 in a row for Philadelphia. That'll give San Francisco the inside track to home field advantage. But there's so much great football left to be played. This is crunch time of December and early January. And that's when you separate the pretenders from the contenders. And the Cowboys are a contender. And I think they're going to beat the Eagles. Eagles are going to go back home with their tail tucked between their legs. I'm sure they'll bounce back. But, boy, the Cowboys got a chance to really flex some muscles and get fun of them beating the little sisters of the poor.
Yeah, San Francisco had a little bad stretch there when they couldn't do anything right, and they seem like they're just as much of a battering ram as they were earlier in the year when they hammered the Cowboys, what they did to Philadelphia.
Kind of weird. Maybe that 3-game losing streak was good for them because they've come back with a vengeance. Cowboys haven't had that kind of losing streak. But I think Dallas Dallas has the talent. You know, Ken McCarthy, he's won a Super Bowl. How much of it was it him? But you don't see those clock issues and game management issues with Shanahan and Sirianni like the Cowboys. But they sure are fun to watch. Dak Prescott's right up there in the MVP conversation, and he can earn a lot of votes over the rest of the schedule.
John, what are your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee?
I was asked before the game on the pregame show who I thought the four should be, and I told them, and that's who it was. Florida State is not one of the four best teams in the country. And I don't think Michigan's all that good. I've been watching them. I've watched Washington. I think the Longhorns are going to win. I think Alabama's going to win. And then you think that the Longhorns are going to come to Houston and beat Nick Saban 2 times in one season? I don't think so. And so I would say Alabama's the favorite. Hey, I felt bad for Georgia. Don't lose the game. Florida State, I feel terrible for Florida State. And the reward is having to play Georgia, the biggest dynasty in college football over the last 3 years.
John, thank you, sir. Baylor man against Seton Hall tonight, by the way, at the Farrell Center, just in case you forgot about your alma mater.
I didn't forget about it. Congratulations to the Bears being the only school in the country with men and women in the top 10. Stick 'em.
Thank you. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us on Tuesdays, normally around 5:30 or so on 365 Sports. I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier. Garrett, again, there was some chatter. One of our former co-workers contacted me and Paul about the possibility of realignment. Listen, realignment is on the front burner. It is every day, even if the burner's off. But there were some reports about how there was some sort of briefing between the Big 12 and Commissioner Yormark and what's going on with the possible implosion yet again, and now with the Florida State story and the ACC and all that. Maybe it spikes up again, I don't know. Big 12 source, any report, the Big 12 discussed the ACC implosion and scenarios did not happen because the report mentioned that it was like last night, that they were briefed last night. That is false. I'm also not aware of any meeting between ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark on that specific topic. That doesn't mean they've never met. That doesn't mean they haven't called each other. That doesn't mean they haven't bumped into each other, like even maybe at some point at various administration type, these NCAA meetings, AD meetings, commissioners, et cetera, presidents. And that also does not rule out the fact that something can flare up pretty quickly. But anything about a briefing last night, or anything with the Big 12 because of the Florida State mess, the chaos, the disappointment in the ACC. Just wanted to put that out there. We started the show off with that. Somebody asked me about that again. Did we touch on it? Yes, we absolutely did.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 questions I have about Charlie Baker's proposal. And you know, I haven't gotten that deep into it other than the bullet points of the thing, so that's why I have these questions. But it does seem to be being met with being well received from different groups. So
yeah, I haven't seen a lot of people rolling their eyes. Here we go again. This was kind of a little bit different to me.
Well, I mean, especially since the NCAA actually admitted, like, hey, our model's antiquated. We're like the software from Southwest Airlines.
Have
last
they really
Christmas.
admitted that?
I mean, this is what they're doing. Like. They've got, like, they have to get with it. Like, they really, you know, they have to. I had lunch with some friends today. And one of them.
You think the NCAA has a rotary phone anywhere in Indianapolis?
No, but I had lunch with some friends today, and he said, you know, it's kind of astounding that these are all people who, in higher education, like, you don't get a job with an AA degree as the university president, right?
Right.
Like, you don't. You have multiple degrees. You've been in education for a long time. You're surrounded by what are supposed to be the smartest people in their fields, all of this, and then how dumb they are when it comes to things and how they don't see it. And so this is the first time we've seen the NCAA maybe do something. And look, it's kind of scary in that you're just absolutely telling people you're a have and you're a have not.
Yep.
You're saying it. Like, there's always been understood, but you're saying it now. Number 5, can this work within Title IX? That is the plan that it will. I think there are some things that this is what will make it more difficult, because this does not allow anybody to be callous and be like, oh, well, I guess we don't need to have women's lacrosse. Done. But because you have to put some into Title IX.
Not some.
Yeah, you have to put
50% of it of whatever you're committed to.
But so 50% of what you're committed to, well, that means you're going to have to raise a whole lot of money to make sure you don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul from football and basketball. So,
well, let me make this clear. They're not going to rob Peter. They're not going to rob men's basketball and football. So they're going to have to come up with more money. So they're going to
come up with more money. And that's where I think the rubber's going to hit the road on some of these things, the decisions schools would have to make. Like, can you really raise enough money to where you don't have to do this? Or you just go, look, we're going to be here. We're going to be in the other one. We can make direct NIL deals. Not everybody can go there. We'll have some fine athletes. We'll have our own championship. It's fine. Number 4, what rules would change? Like they mentioned, scholarship limits, NIL, like those kind of rules. What would they change? Would they just kind of keep the same things that they're doing, but police it differently? How do they police it? Is there a commissioner of this? If it's operating separate of the NCAA, how do they do that? I don't know. I mean, like that's something that remains to be seen. And I mean, I think in this regard, that would probably be better than the NCAA, because the NCAA, golly, I'm glad that they don't have, they're not in charge of solving murders.
Right.
It would be really, really bad because they don't know how to investigate things. Number 3, what does this mean for the postseasons? For the college football playoff, the 12 team, like we kind of see where that's going. I may be more curious about the basketball tournament.
Tournament. Well, here's the thing. Football is run by the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yes.
FBS.
Yes.
The basketball tournament is absolutely run by the NCAA.
Okay, but if you're going to have 2 divisions of Division I in the basketball tournament that's much bigger, and I'm going to be in A division, like I'm going to say I'm in A division, and I have different recruiting rules, and I have different other things than you do because I'm policing myself on a different deal, then how do those 2 divisions...
Well, the NABC, which is all of the basketball programs, seems to be in favor of at least the option.
Okay, so... that means that it hopefully won't affect it, because it's one of the things that they do really well.
I don't think they want it to affect George Mason or.
Okay,
you would think so.
But if we're going to start doing super leagues, because this is what this could eventually lead to.
I'll tell you this: football can do their super league and probably get away with it. I think they'll lose some people because it's too close to professional football.
Yeah,
and we already see that now with NIL. College basketball needs to be careful about trying to splinter off from the 300 and some schools that are making, to me, what makes March Madness so exciting.
Oh, yeah. They don't.
That would be dangerous.
They just don't need to mess with it.
I'm not saying they've even suggested that, but yeah.
Okay. Number 2, what does this mean for conferences? And my question is, okay, look, it's like we heard Pete Nakos, like nobody in the Big Ten or SEC is going to say no to this. Like they would all be able to go up because they have that money, and that money that's going to go in, to the trust funds. Big 12, ACC, like when you get into those, are there some schools that just don't want to do this? They can't do it.
Right.
Or they want to do it, but they just cannot, they don't want to put it on the credit card.
Right.
Because some of them will have to put it on the credit card. And some of them will be fine with that, because I think some schools operate as if, because it takes forever. Like, look, UCLA's athletic department is in the red, like gigantically, and it's been in the red for a long time, but there's no comeuppance for like a decade, right?
Right.
So they get to meet, like, they get to say, well, we're going to the Big Ten and we can make up for that, and then it makes up for it. But other than an athletic director or a school president getting fired, they're not going to shut down UCLA.
No.
Like, that's not going to happen.
No.
So they just,
That's why you saw Ross Dellinger, Nicole Auerbach, among others, ones who were trying to, okay, wait a minute, this Title IX thing, because it could be messy.
Because there are schools, And I'll use the example of Texas and their previous athletic director, Steve Patterson. If he could have gotten rid of every non-revenue sport, he would have. Like, he absolutely would have. He was very candid about, like,
and that's a school that is incredibly successful, winning that whatever the cup. Not last year Stanford did, but
for him, he was totally a businessman. Yes. He was not. He had no interest in the higher education aspect of it. He was just, and look, he got run out because he should have been run out. But he gave an interview one time where he said, "Listen, these things are just numbers on a balance sheet to me." Well, they're not though. Those are student athletes. Like, that's what they are. Like, you either want to be in that business that outside of two things is not profitable. Like, outside of that, you either want to be in it or you don't. So that's where it concerns me, is like, who are the ones that just see, like, who see lacrosse and baseball and wrestling as numbers on a balance sheet and not student athletes. That's my concern for this. It's like, where does that happen, and who says, okay, well, we're not going to do that because we just can't. And then they go. Number one, and this falls into that, how many teams can really do this? Who could, like, really do it?
I think it's more than we think,
but
there will be some casualties.
Yes, more than we think, but less than. There's going to be some people that are bummed that they're in the not Premier League. And
well, if you want to be,
but then you can't. But then you look, if you eventually get the money, maybe you can go and do it. But but yeah, it makes it pretty difficult. Like all of that, and then I'll just throw this one in there. If there's going to be two divisions of this, other than you like getting guarantee games, like, do you want to schedule these teams that are going to be pumping way more money in than you are? It's going to be strange. It's going to be really, really strange. I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm sure these questions will be answered, or should be answered, in the specifics of it. But I do think it's one of those things where it's kind of put some schools on notice about where it's going officially. Like, this where it has to be.
Well, it's always been kind of in the background in the boardrooms or whatever. It's been out there. Media, we've discussed. Everyone's discussed it, but now it's out there actually in writing.
Also, they hired Charlie Baker because of his political experience, right? And I have a feeling that doing something like this was the only way to get Congress to do anything that'll help them when it comes to NIL and the regulating those laws nationally. Because what they really need, the basic thing they need with NIL is just a national standard, so that Florida, Texas, California, and Georgia all don't have different laws because somebody thought up something new and ran it through. We're like, hey, good old boy slapped this on the back. Guess what Georgia's not doing? They're not doing this. For example, we talked about Quinn Ewers, who could still be the quarterback at Ohio State, right, if he stayed there. Well, the reason he went to Ohio State in the first place is because he couldn't make NIL money when he was in high school, right? So and then he came back to where he wanted to go in the first place. Those kind of laws, they need to be regulated. That's the big deal. And there needs to be a fair marketplace where you regulate the agents as well. But they're not going to do that until the NCAA meets them halfway.
I agree. We were going to get, thank you, Paul, top 5. Craig, again, has been out. He's not feeling great. He'll hopefully be back tomorrow. I will be out Thursday and Friday. I wanted to get to the 2011 double overtime Iowa State-Oklahoma State game. Garrett, we'll discuss that again tomorrow on that game and how it could have affected one of the great runs, of course, a continued run of the SEC. We'll do that. The Big 12 bowl games, we still need to put that up, but we've had so much, and we appreciate all of you who are on the chat, but a lot of you also in the chat, in the text line. I've responded to some of you today. It's like being in the middle of a very busy intersection or an overpass with 2 or 3 highways, big highways in a major market. It's so crazy what's coming at you and us, and we try to at least place it in front of you and cover it the best we can with our guests. Tomorrow, Dave Softy Mahler, Seattle Radio, KJR, Washington Huskies, Chip Brown on UT. He'll join us tomorrow among some other guests that we have Thank you, Gary. Great job weaving in and out. The last couple of days have been just haywire. And then also Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway. Thanks to GXG. You can go to BaylorBears.com, BaylorBears.com/GXG, and a chance, if you want, to be a part of the NIL collective with GXG, the Baylor NIL, which has obviously had an impact with a lot of the players who are coming back. We mentioned even a couple of more of those yet today, and also on who they might add in the portal, like everybody else in college football is trying to do. Tonight, 365 Sports Tonight, presented by GXG. I'm David Smoak. Thank you, our great sponsors. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas.